Hello, hello, hello.
Hey.
What's
Hello,
up, everyone?
friends.
Oh my gosh, who's that on our screen?
I don't know.
There's someone with us.
I'm officially recording this thing now. Here we go.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Guys, surprise, we have a guest on today.
Woo!
Homie of the podcast, longtime big brother and advocate, and a huge reason why we continued, if we're being honest. When we were feeling down and out, this man helped us with encouragement. Welcome, Blake from the Tone Mob.
Hello. I'm so excited about this. You know, this is great. I've
Hell
been looking forward to this for a long time. This is so cool.
And that's probably on us.
Oh yeah, dude. We are. Blake will tell you, trying to coordinate. He's so professional and put together, and he's like, "Hey, when are we going to do this?" And I'm like, "I don't know." So, I'm sure it was a nightmare coordinating with us on our end. Sorry, bro.
Not really. I'm just like, whenever I'm always set up. I'm always ready to go. So
I know you're so sweet.
Like-
That's why we don't work with any other podcasts, because we just can't get our shit together.
Yeah. We're too embarrassed to show our true colors. Behind the scenes is a nightmare.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm for it. No, I was telling DJ before we started recording, like, you would be surprised. I interview primarily musicians, like actually 100% musicians, and they're all like, "Well, I got some earbuds." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Well, okay, I guess." I'm like, "Have you never recorded anything ever before? Like, what are we doing here?"
And they're musicians, and they're just rocking like the iPod ones.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm like, you don't have like an SM58 at least just laying around somewhere? Or one you can borrow?
Real quick, do we want to like jump into podcasts or kind of hang out for a minute? What are you feeling, Blake?
Yeah.
What are you guys feeling?
I mean, whatever. I'm down to clown. So
We can jump in and hang out.
yeah.
Okay,
True. Let's do it.
just be more relaxed.
Mhm.
So let's do. Should I do a full-on intro?
yeah, do a full-on intro.
Guys, you already know. It's the 3 a.m. pod. My name is Charlie.
My name's DJ.
My name is Sean.
And with us today, we have the beautiful, the amazing, the talented Blake from Tone Mob.
I don't know if any of those things apply, but sure, I'm here.
Also in the studio, we have Ren, the creator, our engineer. Shout out, Ren. Anyway, we've already kind of said, long time coming. Blake's been a friend of the podcast for a very long time. Kind of funny story of how Blake found us. And correct me if I'm wrong. But very early on, like we start in January 4 years ago. And a couple weeks in, Sean is the only one who has any kind of money to his name. And Sean's like, I'll throw like $10 towards an IG ad. Yeah. We're like, sure. So we do that. And from that ad, Blake and Spooky Bands like saw us and they were like, scary stories. And it's just our faces like smiling. Man. Or he might have seen the one where it was just our logo. And they were like,
maybe,
sure.
yeah.
And they gave it a shot.
Real quick, jumping on a flight, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
when
was
you found us.
I was actually coming back from or going to, I can't remember, from NAM, which is not Vietnam, but the National Association of Music Merchants. It's a giant trade show that happens in Anaheim, well, pretty much every year up until COVID. And so I was getting on a flight, either going to or coming back, and I was just standing there randomly, you know, waiting to get on the plane, and I was, of course, scrolling IG like any good millennial.
Hell yeah.
And all of a sudden it was the logo. That's what I remember. And I remember being like, this logo's tight. I was like, this name's cool. What is this? And I clicked on it and I was like, oh, Scary Stories podcast. This is all kinds of my business. And so went immediately to Apple, which I mostly use Spotify for podcasts now, but I went over to Apple, downloaded like a bunch of episodes for the flight. And I remember specifically, I can't remember like all the details, but there was one story in particular where it was like the guy or like the family got stopped by this guy in the rain, and the uncle like got out to talk to the mystery person. And then they never found out what he said to the uncle, but he was like, we got to get out of here now. And then,
I remember that, bro.
Yeah,
That's
dude,
a listener. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
Yeah, she sent that in. She sent in a lot of stories, but that one, yeah, the cliffhanger kills me with that.
oh,
one.
it's still, I'm like, come on, uncle.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? like, geez,
through.
man. Like, what's it going to hurt at this point? This is
Yeah.
years later. We
Yeah,
need
yeah.
closure. There's
Yeah.
thousands of people that need closure on this story. I'm one of them.
I know. I should hit them back up and be like, I don't care what you got to do, but you
Find
got to
out.
find out. Yeah.
Yeah, because what could be, so I've told the same story to like family and friends, and they're like, what could he have possibly have said to A, frighten him so bad that they had to like immediately turn around and leave, and B, never speak of it again. Like, that's the wildest thing to me.
That is, yeah.
More on you, Blake. Blake runs a flourishing podcast, The Tone Mob, reviewing music gear, interviewing musicians. You've been doing it how long now?
Since 2015.
2015.
Wow.
Yeah, 2015. I started on a hillside in Portland, Forest Park. You guys are probably familiar.
Vaguely.
Like sitting on the hill. I got out of work, ran up the hill with my iPhone. There was an app called Ringer back in the day. This is before Zoom was like popular. Skype was still kind of a thing, but people still didn't really know. And so I went up there and recorded my first episode just sitting on like a log on the side of a hill with my iPhone. But it's primarily an interview-based show. I get guests on from, I started with like a lot of pedal builders, like guitar effects pedals. I always forget that people don't always know what that is. And it just kind of branched out from there. And I've gotten to talk to some of my favorite musicians of all time and become kind of friends with them through it.
Yeah, who's like the biggest one or the most starstruck one you had?
Well, so I like, a lot of kind of weirder stuff, and I'm like one of the ex-Warped Tour kids. So a lot of those people I've gotten to talk to. Thrice is my favorite band of all time. I don't know if you've heard of them, but it is kind of funny. Like, I remember listening to an episode where you guys were talking about Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah.
And I was like, John Nolan's been on the podcast before. Like, like,
did he make you cry?
He didn't. He's the more yelly one. Yeah, he's a guitar player primarily, but he's the one that's like, when the singer gets done singing, he's the one that's like shouting in the background.
Gotcha.
She said,
Don't let it go to your head.
Was like you or dime a dozen.
That was my shit, bro. Me on my scooter, like delivering pizzas and shit. I was like, man, don't let that shit go to your head. Boys like you are dime a dozen.
That's right. But so there's been a lot of that, but like some of the crazier ones that more people are going to be familiar with, Frank Iero from My Chemical Romance came on, and he's amazing. That was such a good conversation. And then Kyle Gass from Tenacious D.
Yes.
Yeah, that was weird because that one came to me. Usually I have to go seek these people out.
wow.
And the managers hit me up out of the blue. I was like, yeah, like, I don't even care what we talk about. Yeah.
We're still waiting for like Ari Aster to hit us up and be like, hey, let me come on.
That'd be incredible.
Well, with your podcast, I'd assume it's pretty niche topic. Like,
yeah, it generally speaking, it is, but I've really tried to not stick to it, if that makes any sense. Like, people come for the gear talk, and then I'm always like, yeah, but tell me about yourself. How'd you get started? I always want to know more about the people. The gear's fun, and sometimes we get down really nerdy rabbit holes, but one of my favorite episodes was with a guitar player named Yvette Young, and she's been on like 3 times. She's an incredible player. Her band's called Covet. You guys should check it out. She's totally changing the instrument, in my opinion. But like, one time we actually was the Patreon episode of her second appearance. We talked for like, she was like, let's try to make this the longest episode you've ever done. We talked for like,
I love that. She's game.
Yeah, it wasn't, but it was close. we went like 3 hours or something. And but on the last half, she's talking about her sleep paralysis demons and all this other stuff. We got down there.
I love
and
it.
she's the only person I know that's actually reached out and touched her sleep paralysis demon. So yeah.
Usually it touches you, dude.
Yeah. She was like trying to show it.
Nightmare.
Uno reverse.
Yeah. She was like, I wanted to show it that I wasn't afraid. and that I wasn't a threat. And so she like reached out and touched the
Give it a noogie.
yeah. Dapped it up.
Yeah.
Hey.
Damn, that's crazy.
But that was an insane chat. So that was cool. And she's absolutely a beautiful person as well. She's just such a sweet person.
And what was her name again?
Yvette Young.
Of Covet.
Mm-hmm.
Rad.
Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, you were saying people come for the gear and then stay for the talk and the people and the personality.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the initial, like, the gear bit is niche enough where there's a wide enough audience, at least with just musicians and not just consumers, where they're like, yeah, I want to talk about this that I made, or like my my effects processing or things like that. I don't
Well,
know.
it gets really like there's some topics, there's, for instance, was a amp builder named Howard Dumble, and he made these incredible amplifiers that go for like 6 figures plus. And like Carlos Santana was a big user of them. Like lots of really famous in the guitar world people, have used his stuff. And then I never got to talk to him because he was like a crazy recluse, but there's been a lot of people who have known him and like made amps based on his designs more publicly available and things. And just like that, like guitarists know all this stuff. So when they see somebody they know is tangentially related to it, they're like, oh, well, I gotta hear about this, and then they're like, I didn't know I was going to find out about his pizza preferences, type of thing. So it's somewhat easier to get people in the door, but at the same time, a lot of guitarists aren't that nerdy about it. So they're like, what am I going to hear talk about fuzz pedals for 3 hours? Like, what? So it's kind of a balancing act. And I remember telling you guys when we were at that little random brewery, like, you guys
Blake took
going.
Sean and I out to dinner, and it was very sweet. Wined and dined us.
Yeah, it was a good time. I wish it could have been longer. I had to like jet, but but it was. I was like, you guys are going to be really big if you just keep going, and now you guys are like 5 times bigger than me. So
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
We are label mates. I haven't looked at your stats, but
well, I did, and you guys are like 5 times bigger than me. So.
Yeah,
but I really mean it because of that niche nature. Like you have something that gets people in the door too, but you don't have to be a guitarist to be interested in this stuff. You could be anything. It's a little bit niche versus like mainstream stuff, but it's wide enough that people are gonna.
I would agree.
Like, scary stories. I like scary stories. The top end potential is very, very high.
The spooky shit is such a wide net because, like, if you're into it, you're into it, and it doesn't really matter what background you come from. And in fact, that brings color to like the story.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would agree. It's like there's so many times where I've been in situations where the vibe is whatever, people are not jiving, and then it's like, should we tell scary stories? And everyone is like,
Ooh,
yes, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you vibe with scary stories, it's like it's a good, it's like a social lubricant. It's like
green
alcohol.
flags I look for.
Yeah. Exactly.
Even if people are apprehensive, I almost like see it as a challenge sometimes. If they're like listening from a distance.
To get them
Because I don't
in.
really mess with it. And I was like, oh, that's the person I'm trying to go for.
Dude, I do the same thing. I went to Powell this last year, and there was probably 30 people on the boat. And I know like 4 of them well. So I have this huge audience of like people, and I'm telling scary stories. And yeah, I'm watching the crowd. I'm seeing who's reacting. And then I like target the guy who's not really listening. And then by the end, he was like, wait, what? And I was like, yes, like you did it. I did it. So no, I love that.
A little more on you, dude. How did you come into what you do now, like with music? Like what sparked the passion? What was some of the influences growing up? Did you have like your parents show you music, or like an older brother or sister show you music? Like, did you play instruments, forced to play piano at an early age?
I mean, kind of all the above. I'm the oldest, so I didn't have the older brother thing, but I did have a lot of friends that were older than me. I tended to run with versus people my own age once I had the opportunity, And so that really got me started down the punk rock side. But like initially I was growing up with like a lot of country music. I mean, I'm wearing a Waylon Jennings shirt right now.
Hell
So,
yeah,
like,
brother.
Yeah, like a lot of old school country. That was what I was brought up on. And I always have liked that stuff. But as soon as somebody's like, have you heard of a band called The Clash? And I was like, no. And, just go down that rabbit hole. And that really changed the game for me. I got really into punk and hardcore and metalcore, and that was just my whole jam. I brought home a band called, and my parents were like apprehensive, but also super cool about it, because I brought home I don't know if you guys have heard this band, but there's a band called Unearth, and they were like the heaviest thing I'd heard at the moment. And it's pretty intense. And I remember my mom like hearing it through the door, and she kind of just is like, you all right? Like everything okay?
Praying.
Yeah, she's like, I don't know. But they've always been super supportive. I started playing piano, and my teacher finally was like, you keep bringing me all these rock songs. Like not Billy Joel piano rock songs, like metal and stuff. Like we can't, I think you need to play guitar or something. And then my friend let me buy his drums, and this is how sweet my parents are. my mom, it's like a 1,200 square foot house, right? Nothing crazy. She let me set up in my bedroom, and I would just blast System of a Down and try to play these drums that I couldn't even play. I was just
7 a.m.
like it
7
didn't.
a.m. You're like, wake up.
Put on your makeup.
Which there's actually another one. I interviewed Chavo, the bassist from System of a Down.
Wow.
Insane, bro.
Cool.
Yeah, that was wild. But I don't know. I just got really into to guitar, and my dad also plays, but he's like, I don't know anything about any of this stuff. I just strum an acoustic and sometimes tickle a Telecaster once in a while. And I'm like, but I want to drop tune and play Korn songs. How do I do that? You know, like, so that's where it started for me. Was really like trying to figure out on my own. This is kind of like pre-internet a little bit. Like how do I do these songs? How do I make these sounds? Because when I plug in anything that my dad had, or like, there's no way that this is right. There's no way I can play this kind of music. And so just trying to explore sound has always been a passion of mine. And once I got into the gear more and more, I realized like, oh man, the possibilities are endless. And I just so badly wanted to be in the industry. I just kind of figured out a way to weasel my way in. And, you know, through the podcast, you know, I met my friend and business partner, Scott, who he at the time had started a guitar string company. And we just hit it off so well, you know, and I was working this job I didn't like and all this stuff. And he was like, you want to be involved in the company? And so I pulled a little bit out of my retirement and invested in the company. And now, fast forward all these years later, like we're making a lot of headway. Like it's a very substantial part of what I do is, you know, we manufacture stuff in Nashville. And
what's it called? So the listeners know?
Stringjoy guitar strings. Yeah.
So if you play guitar, dude, hit it up.
Yeah, exactly. And we're branching out into retailers. We just got into Sweetwater last year.
Ooh, that's huge.
It was massive. Yeah.
That's why you got the Sweetwater discount code.
That was from the podcast. It's this weird.
Oh, that's from the podcast.
I kind of like hit him from both angles. Like I went there for Gear Fest, which is where I interviewed Chavo, and I dropped off this massive pack of strings, and the media people got it to the right people, and that started the conversation. And then it was like, oh, half of us already play these. So
damn,
sick.
You hit them with the 1-2, and they were like, all right.
Yeah. So it kind of like we got, you know, the Scott and the crew down there work with them on the manufacturing side. I work with them on the media side, and so it's kind of a really good relationship that we've built over there, and we're just trying to get into more and more spots. But that's become a huge part of my life, is that
I love it.
It all comes from the podcast. One of the things about podcasting that I'm so passionate about is because not only is it fun, not only do I get to do things like this, and the actual podcast itself is a good time, but I get the excuse to hit up all these people that I have no business talking to.
Yeah.
Why would I want to talk to? Why would Chavo want to talk to me? Oh, because I talk on the internet and people listen to it. So it's become a massive like networking tool, which is not something I expected from podcasting. Like that's been more important than anything, is like the people I've met through the show.
I love that.
It's totally enabled me to have a career.
Dude, that's so sick. That's the dream. So this might be too much of like how the sausage is made or like behind the scenes, but so you got like into manufacturing, right? Like the guitar strings.
Mm-hmm.
And do you make a pedal as well?
Well, yeah, I don't personally make pedals, but I've done several collabs over the years with companies that do. Mm-hmm. The most recent being the slice of pie that I did with Big Ear Pedals, which is a fuzz pedal in the shape of a piece of pizza.
I love it. I would buy it just for aesthetic. I'm
obsessed with pizza. And so that was a huge project, actually. Like it's a novelty thing, obviously, but getting all of that right took so much work.
Oh,
and
for sure.
And we were able to pull it off thanks to Grant and Karen down there at Big Ear Pedals. So
if we were to manufacture something, what would we make?
Something pizza related, because I'm also obsessed with pizza.
Mm-hmm. Or like, is it like ghost hunting, like our own like UV meter? Or is it like a flashlight? Or like,
honestly, something to be prepared in a scary situation, I feel like.
Just like holy water kit.
Holy water kits.
Crucifix, like everything.
A 3 a.m. crucifix.
You know Benny? You know the Mummy? Have you ever seen the Mummy?
Yeah.
You know Benny?
Where he's pulling out his necklaces?
He just has like everything, and he's like hitting Islam and Buddhism. And it's like we should do that like every like way.
Honestly, just all connected into one strand at the back or something.
There you go, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
I like
a dream. I love that. I love the idea that like, yeah, it started on a hill with your iPhone, which I respect so much because I get really caught up and I feel like I have to have the right gear and the right system before I start. And I talk to so many people who like ask, how do I start a podcast? And dude, I love that you just went out, iPhone, and you did it. You started it. And at some point that was the same with us. It's like, we just had a shitty mic, a stool. In fact, the stool's right over there, the same stool.
Oh, straight up.
And it's like,
dude.
let's just do episode 1 because you got to get it out of the way.
Honestly.
So,
Do you know producer artist Steve Lacey?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but
Well,
yeah.
Like he has he went super viral last year with his song "I Wish I Knew" or "Bad Habits," and the line is "I wish I knew."
Oh, that was huge on TikTok.
Yeah, but he's been producing for a long time for big artists like Frank Ocean and Kendrick Lamar.
yeah.
But like when he started, I don't know how he made the connection, but once he made the connection, he was making beats for some of these big people. Little did they know he was doing it all off of his iPhone on GarageBand because he was so poor. That's all he could afford.
Damn.
And right now that iPhone is in the Smithsonian.
What?
So like
That's so sick.
I think there's a song on "To Pimp a Butterfly," which is one of the biggest hip hop records of all time, that Steve Lacey produced before he got big as an individual in the mainstream. You know,
Yeah.
like he produced on his iPhone, and that's in the Smithsonian, like the cracks on the screen and all. Like you can see it.
Damn.
But it's like, dude, you just
Just
start.
like Flappy Bird and then like
exactly.
the stems for To
Yeah.
Pimp a Butterfly.
Yeah, it's like you work with what you got, and you go from there. But
It's good to like remind yourself that.
for sure,
Because I get really caught up in gear and I'm like, if we just get a better camera, we'll be rich. And DJ's constantly like, no, like it's the stories that matter. So
it's a balance.
It's definitely a balance because like last year I bought a Blackmagic
6K?
Pocket 6K,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I've used it quite a bit, but mostly I use this Instalink 360, which was like $300, the what I'm using right now.
I actually
So-
wanted to get an Instalink 360. I didn't tell you guys that. So
They are it's awesome.
I know they're dope, dude.
It's so good, and it makes my workflow so much easier. And
Good.
and I'm like looking over there, I'm like, wow, good thing I spent all that money on that. I still use it, and I will use it more and more, but
Yeah.
it's
Not the gear.
it's not the gear, and don't let perfect be the enemy of good, you know, because I didn't come up with that. I've heard it from a bunch of people, but I have to remind myself of that too, because obviously you look around here, I'm obsessed with gear, and I have a lot of guitars and like hundreds of pedals and all this stuff is completely unnecessary, completely and totally unnecessary, especially in this day and age. It's just, you know, it's fun, and that's why I do it. But I do think some people get too wrapped up from a musical standpoint in like, oh, I need this thing. And yeah, sometimes you do. That's true. Sometimes you do, but you don't generally need it. It just would make it better.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what's important is that you do the thing.
I always just tell them, like, they're like, I want to start a podcast. What do I do? And I just say, just start. Like,
Just
record
do
the
it.
first episode and throw it away. Just get it out of the way. Because I think you'll learn so much in that process of just trying.
I couldn't even do that. Like a bunch of my early episodes, you know, there's trains going on, and I'm, you know, like, cause I literally worked right by a train track. And so I'm recording, and I'm like in a fuel lab, you know, and it's just like the craziest thing to go back. At the time, I'm like, these don't sound too bad. I go back and listen to them, and I'm like, these sound terrible.
Yeah.
These are, but the interviews were still good.
Oh.
And one of my first interviews was with a guy named Robert Keeley. And he's a very popular pedal maker. Like, you just say Keeley to most guitar players that are into it at all, and they're like, oh yeah, I got his compressor. Like, he just immediately started opening up about his drug addiction.
Whoa.
That's
so
when
deep.
I knew I'm like, that was an eye-opening experience. I knew, okay, I'm onto something here.
That's
If
cool.
people are willing to do this with me, I can really go to some places. And that it doesn't always get that heavy, but sometimes it does.
Yeah. I like that. Like, as like a fellow podcaster, it's fun because we get to ask you questions that we relate on. So when you are like asking questions, what is your goal, or like what's your direction? Are you trying to lead the conversation anywhere? Are you a big fan of just like let it go anywhere?
I pretty much let it go anywhere. I basically respond off of whatever they've said. You know, sometimes I'll pivot, like, okay, that topic's done. We went as far as we're going to go with that particular line of questioning, and I'll just go off into something else. Now, it's some of that's like natural for me, and some of it I've had to work on.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reps involved. You know,
Totally.
I think I'm on episode 3. think I'm at 340 now on the main, and then with Patreon included, that I'm probably closer to 500. But then I also do another podcast. Like there's easily over 1,000 episodes because I do another show with where I started with them at episode 100, and now we're at episode 4 something over there. So there's so many hours of me just blabbering on the internet.
You got reps, dog.
There's I don't know if you know comedian Shane Gillis. His what's the podcast? Is it Matt and Shane podcast?
Yeah.
When they started like 2 years ago, they just started with like episode number 350 something.
They just said that?
Just to make it look like they had a ton.
That's kind of smart.
So right now they're like on 400 or 500 or something, and you go back and it's like, why are there 300 episodes missing?
I love that. Man, we should do that.
I know. Who would, in your world, would be, let's say you have...
White whale.
Yeah.
Who's your Moby Dick?
Yeah. Who's at the top of the list?
So whose head do I want to cut off and harvest for oil? Is that what you're asking?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whose blubber do you
Hang
want to
it on the
suck?
wall, yeah.
There's a lot, actually. That's the thing. There are so many people that I'd love to talk to. This is going to sound really weird, and you guys aren't going to know who this person is, but an episode for me that would be incredible, that almost has happened a couple times, would be with a guy named Bill Finnegan.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah.
Damn.
Billy Phil, you know?
You Mr. Finnegan?
Yeah, Willie F, you know.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. He would hate if he heard me say that. He got
shit.
the reason that it didn't happen is because I called him dude in an email and he got mad at me.
Whoa.
Yeah. He apologized later, but it was it was a weird conversation. Like he called me from a unlisted number to like check to see if I was legit. And then he proceeded to talk to me for an hour. And in my head I'm going, we could have recorded the episode by now. And what he did is he made a guitar pedal called the Klon Centaur, which has been one of the most cloned pedals of all time. And the individual units sell for like $8,000 now because he doesn't really make them anymore. So whether they're worth it or not,
Hanzo of pedals.
Exactly. So the reason I want him so bad is he's never really been interviewed in this format. He's been in a couple magazines here and there. You know, those are a little bit different. I don't love those style of interviews most of the time. I would like to get him on and just like in his own words, be able to tell his story. Plus, selfishly, in my niche, that would be massively downloaded. Like that would be like I could, if I did Bill Finnegan or I did John Mayer, I think Bill Finnegan would be downloaded more for my niche.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a good perspective.
Mhm.
Like puts it in perspective.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective.
Yeah.
Dang, dude,
So,
that's crazy.
That'd be my white whale. I'm still working on it. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I'm trying.
I'm confident. I'm confident in you and the process.
I'll wear him down eventually.
Whether it's Bill or somebody else of equal or more value, they're going to come through. When you were talking about going back real quick earlier to you're playing, who was it, MCR in your bedroom and your mom came by or something?
No.
It was System. Wait,
System
no.
of a, I mean, I played a lot.
Played a
Oh,
bunch.
Unearth. Was
yeah.
the-
And then your mom was like, what's going on?
Mhm.
It reminded me of, have you ever heard of the story of Rage Against the Machine playing a show in Utah?
Vague. Is this the one? No, I'm getting that mixed up with the System show. What's
There's a town south of, about an hour south of Salt Lake City called Spanish Fork. And like most towns, like they have their yearly, festival, carnival rides, things like that. And they booked a band, System of a Down, but it was another one that they thought of. You've heard this story.
Wait,
you know
they
this
booked
story.
System or Rage?
Oh, not System. So sorry. Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
And they thought it was a different Rage Against the Machine. Which the audacity of somebody to have that band name in the 90s,
Yeah, what?
This was like in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s.
And just so you know, like Spanish Fork, Utah, super sleepy small town.
Yeah.
With like really, but like literally Footloose, where they can't dance, is filmed like 20 minutes up the highway of Spanish Fork. So they would not jive with that secular music.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Utah, to no surprise, extremely traditionally conservative state. And then Rage Against the Machine comes through to this town, and all these
This is for the people of the sun.
yeah, exactly. And it's like the residents were terrified. They were like calling the cops because like all these people were coming from out of state.
They're like, a dreadlock Lucifer is here.
Yeah,
And a guy's like scratching his guitar strings, Tom.
yeah. And it was just they went on with the show and they performed in Spanish Fork, Utah for the first and last time.
They raged against the machine.
Yeah, exactly. But then the locals had a bunch of good things to say.
Whoa.
Like, whoa, these people actually are nice. It's like
Right.
real backhanded.
You can like rock and be polite.
yeah. But it's kind of a legendary story in Utah.
I love that,
history,
dude.
That's
I
so
feel like.
funny.
Yeah.
Have you been
phenomenal.
to a lot of concerts and shit?
Oh yeah.
What's
Oh.
like, do you have any crazy concert stories or like best concert experience or just like anything like that?
It's kind of a mismatch because I have a lot of great memories from going to shows just more as a audience member. But in the last few years, it has been really cool to be like, oh, you want to be on the guest list? I'm like, I can be on the guest list. Like what?
Oh, VIP shit.
Yeah. So like there's a combination like that feels like I've like gotten to another level in some ways. Like I got to be like Frank put me on the guest list for MCR when they came through. And so it was weird to be on the guest list at a stadium show.
That's
Whoa,
crazy.
yeah.
I'm like, what? This is bizarre. I just talk to people in my shed. This
Yeah.
doesn't like what like what's going on? And so, but one of the craziest ones for me personally, I mentioned the band Thrice earlier. I'm such a fanboy. I love this band. I have a giant flag hanging from their old farewell tour. Now they're back. So whatever. But like, I'm a
Jokes.
huge fan. Like huge fan. They completely changed my life growing up. And being down in the basement of the Roseland Theater in Portland, interviewing one of the guitar players.
Damn.
Was like just my mind couldn't hardly handle that. And I'm interviewing them with my best friend, Jess. Like he doesn't normally do the show with me, but he's like, you're going to go
coming.
talk to Thrice?
I have to
I'm gonna go. Yeah.
You're going to
And
be a host today.
Yeah. So, and he's great when he's on. It's fantastic. And so we had a great interview. We come out and Ed, the bass player, is there, and we just start chilling, And there was another band opening for them called Holy Fawn that I also love. And I was like, oh, they're playing right now. I should go watch them. But I'm like, or I can sit on this couch and hang out with this bass player who I've listened to since I was like a little kid.
Mm.
And that ended up being the right choice because all of a sudden he's like, we were just talking for hours about just whatever. Like we weren't recording it. We were just chilling. And all of a sudden he busts out the bass that he's played for years. And it's like, here, check this out. And I got to like look at it and play it a little bit. And I'm like, I have heard this bass on like every record that has ever like meant so much to me. I just love that band so much. So, and now that he's a homie,
Yeah,
and
that's
when
sick.
their new record comes out, he's texting me pictures of the recording space
Holy
and things
shit.
like that. So it's like this weird. I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing without them,
Mhm.
And to have those type of experiences as a fan is really hard to wrap my mind around sometimes.
That's dope.
14-year-old me is like going like, what?
I can only imagine if one of
Yeah.
us were like interviewing one of our idols. Question.
It'd be like Kenny Beats or like Kung Fu Kenny, like being
yeah.
like, "Yo, this is the mic I record." You know what I mean? That would be
Mhm.
wild. What were you gonna say?
Have you ever thought about building a rider, or do you have a rider? Like,
I love
let's say you're traveling and you have and for those who don't know, like the rider is like the specific list of items that
An artist.
an artist will have, like basically in like needs that they have when they travel. So they get to this location, they're on tour, and it's like everything from Tylenol to their favorite alcohol to
They can get crazy.
pretzel M&Ms
Yeah.
to like you can look up it like there's a lot of bands riders that are
Just an example.
public.
So if like Lady Gaga is going to go perform, the venue who's booked her will get the rider from Lady
hotel,
Gaga,
yeah.
and they'll be like, she needs like
50 bottles of like smart water.
Courvoisier.
Yeah.
And it will have all this list. So they have to get that shit, and it has to be, the green room has to be packed out with
Mhm.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
So if you had a rider, what's the question?
Yeah, what's going on your rider?
So I've actually been asked this question before.
Oh,
So,
really?
no.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I'm a big foodie, as you guys are aware. Like we've texted back and forth about this stuff. And I would be going, whatever city I'm in, I would be going for like, okay, what is this city known for? You know, like, okay, if I'm in Philly, I'm like, I want the best cheesesteak in the city back there.
So your writer's
Like-
changing with the city. A little high maintenance, but you know,
Not really,
you
because they all
deserve it.
not really because they all gotta. It's all getting shipped out individually anyway. So it's like,
Okay.
you know, so it's not that big of a deal. It's not like they just like BCC
idiot.
everybody and, you know, call it a day.
So you're in
But,
Philly, you want like a cheesecake, a flipped car.
Yeah, grease pole, you know, like all that stuff. Yeah. Batteries.
Yeah.
The whole. So yeah, if I'm going somewhere that like is just, I don't know, Idaho or something, it's just like, I don't know,
Potatoes.
I'd just be looking for whatever because some cities I know, some cities I don't. So I'd just be Googling and figuring out what's the best thing that I can't get. Like, I'm not going to ask for something from Chili's. You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's dynamic.
Yeah.
What would be on Sean's writer?
I'd probably be pretty similar. Wherever I'm going, I need
I think we're all going to take food because that's like a high
food.
on our list.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DJ would have what are those like
Ankle brace.
Yeah, DJ. Crutches, ankle brace, icy hot, and then what are those circle chocolates?
Did
Oh, Ferrero Rocher.
Hey,
dude.
DJ would have Ferrero Rocher. I would have Reese's for sure.
Reese's 100%. Actually,
Kombucha. Just
I
like
would get
packs.
like every
kombucha.
flavor energy drink, just depending
local
on what I want
local
that day.
kombucha.
Yeah. Locally brewed kombucha. Sean
Ooh.
definitely energy drinks. He would need like 10,000 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah, I'm trying to go hard the whole time I'm there. So
I love that.
Yeah, I'm with
Smelling
it. I like it.
salts.
Oh.
Any crazy thing we're not thinking of we can add to our writer?
So one
Like
thing,
fresh
you
pair of
guys.
socks. That would be
like,
so nice.
Well, here's something to think about though. And I know this now. I didn't know this at the time. I used to think like that was the way it was for anybody playing like a theater gig or bigger, right? That they could put whatever on their writer. It's not really the case.
Oh.
Like if you're like kind of just like if you're playing theaters and you're kind of filling them up most of the time, or even selling them out, that they might be like, oh, he asked for, you know, this specific thing, but this is just right down the block and it's a lot closer, so we're just gonna get that, you know. Like it's not as firm as it used to be. Now I'm sure Lady Gaga gets whatever Lady Gaga wants.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You have to
But
be on
if
that
you're
level.
like, you got to be on that level. And like Van Halen used to do this thing. I can't remember what color it was, but they would be like, we only want green M&Ms.
Yes, I
it
remember
wasn't-
seeing that.
It wasn't because they only wanted green M&Ms. It was to make sure that they read the writer.
oh.
They knew if they got there and it wasn't, they didn't have the green M&Ms. Like, well, you probably didn't get the right speakers for us either. Then.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a crazy like litness or quick way to like test someone.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
before Amazon where you could just order like a pound of green M&Ms.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm sure they had some intern like picking out all the green M&Ms.
Mhm.
That's funny. That's
Yeah.
cool. So they used it as a tool to like, all right,
Yeah.
let's see how professional
quality check their people.
they are. Yeah.
Yep. And it also like then became kind of legend. It was just another thing to talk about with Van Halen, you know.
Right.
Have you ever listened to Ghost?
Of course. Hmm.
A fan of them?
I wouldn't say I'm a mega fan, but I can appreciate it.
I feel I like recently learned about them. I'm like, and this is it's always humbling.
Educate because I have no idea.
It's humbling to me talking to people who are into different types of music. Like when I managed a record shop for a couple of years back then,
Mhm.
I was like the go-to for all things like hip hop and like electronic, but everybody else was really into like indie and rock and punk, and it was humbling.
You
like,
felt
how much
like a
I didn't
newbie
know. Yeah,
in that arena.
for sure. But with Ghost, I found them recently, shamefully through TikTok.
Hey, wherever you find it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Dude, half our listeners now found us through TikTok. So so we're the same.
I feel like they're like the crossover between your podcast and ours, as far as like what little I know about them, because I've only like dipped my toes in the water. Like they have a whole lore surrounding their band members.
Oh,
So,
you
like,
were telling me
I
about
love
this.
deep
That's
lore
right.
people.
the lead singer, and I don't know for you. There's like a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of artists that kind of have built like this story around them, like Gorillaz. They have his whole universe, the animated universe. Sometimes it can be a gimmick. So I wonder if like Ghost is like respected like musically in the scene. Anyway, their whole lore is based upon like their lead singer being like the Pope almost, like a black Pope. They're like
Like an evil pope.
Antichrist. Yeah,
Yeah.
like an evil Pope. And it's like in the beginning, they had the lead singer. He wasn't doing well enough, so they offed him, and they instated they got like a new pope to be the new lead
Whoa.
singer, and now they're like every album I think is like a new pope with a new message.
Wow.
So and that's like
I
what
don't know if
drives the
that-
album. Is that
I don't think that's quite right, but I know like the ghouls change, the players in the band.
well? The thing is, it's like I've seen like different costumes.
Bro, this is like a D&D quest.
I've seen different costumes, and they have like they call him like Papa.
Is like
Papa
Guar?
Emeritus the Fourth or something,
Mhm.
but. The whole time it's been the same person, like
Sure.
in real life.
Okay, I got
Just
you.
the character
Yeah,
changes.
it's just the
Yeah,
character
okay.
that like the new pope or whatever with the new
And
album.
as far as them being respected, I think what throws them off in the metal community is that you look at them and you're like, whoa, this is like going to be some intense black metal, like
Some Swedish shit.
Exactly. And then you hear them and you're like, this is like power metal. This is like almost hair metal. Like it's
Ooh.
really, it's very listenable for your average person compared to, some black metal stuff where they're just like,
Pig screaming.
So, yeah, exactly. So it's kind of it's thrown some people for a loop to where they're like, they're not metal, kind of like there's always
got you.
gatekeepers, right?
They have an
Yeah.
expectation.
Mhm.
It's not met.
Yeah. And so I think it's just because you have an expectation that they're going to sound like that. And you go in and this is like, like all this, So it's,
But they got the spooky lore aspect too. to
which
the
is
music,
fun.
Dude.
Mhm.
which is fun to follow.
Well, speaking of that, like the perfect marriage between Tone Mob and Thrice AM, 3 a.m. What's your background with like paranormal, spooky? What's your attract to it? Like, why did you download, or like, tell us about your experience with that?
That's a good question. I've just naturally always gravitated towards that stuff. Like I am severely messed up, apparently.
Damn. Are you okay?
I feel fine. I feel great. But well, I mean, for an instance, like I'm usually a lot better about this, but recently I did a pedal demo for a friend's company called Mr. Black Pedals, and he released a pedal called Heaven's Gate.
Ooh.
And you can imagine the references that is entailing. You guys familiar with the Heaven's Gate, like
The cult?
the cult?
Is it
Yeah.
Jonestown?
No, Heaven's Gate was different, but similar outcome.
With the website though, right?
Yeah,
Heaven's
with
Gate,
the
like,
website.
Somebody's
and they-
still running the website.
There's like two
that's
people
right.
that didn't off themselves
Yep.
that are running the website still to this day. But the rest of them like died. They all committed suicide to join and land on a comet, right? And
Are they the ones with the Nikes?
they're the one with the Nikes.
Hell
yes. Yeah. So there's all of this imagery around it. And I, because I'm real dumb, decided for my YouTube thumbnail, I would put you can find the images of them, like they all died like covered up with these purple sheets.
Yep.
And like you can find the images of that went around the news.
I think Suicide Boys has an album cover with that same thing on it.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I used that for a thumbnail. And then some people pointed out that like, I see what you're doing there, but most guitarists aren't gonna just be like, that's a dead body. I don't think I like that very well. And
I know
so
what
I
you're
had
saying.
I changed it to somebody just wearing the shoes. Instead of them being horizontal. They were vertical.
Yeah.
But all
Graphic
that
design.
yeah. Oh, my
Rotate.
thumb. Don't look at my thumbnails. They're so bad, but I kind of do it. I kind of do it bad on purpose. It's a long story, but
Yeah.
Anyway, I just always have been into that stuff for some reason. I don't know why. Growing up, it was like werewolves, mummies,
Yeah.
cool. I had a subscription to a Scholastic magazine that was called the Thrills and Chills Club. Growing up,
That sounds sick.
Bro, that's
It
our
was-
Patreon.
dude, it was awesome. My parents paid for like the first month or so, and it was like $12, and this is in the 90s.
Oh.
And you would get a magazine with like a bunch of books that would be shipped to your door every month. And
That's
my parents
sick.
were like, you can keep getting this, but you're gonna have to pay for it. And I did. I mowed lawns, and $12 was kind of hard to come up with back then.
Sure.
And I was raiding my piggy bank and like all kinds of stuff like to get this magazine.
I need
And
these thrills. I need these chills.
I need them. I need them. And so I was just so into it for so long, and I really don't know why. Like I have no idea why I've always been into that stuff, but it's just always been there for me. I love horror. I love horror movies. I'm the only one in my family who does. I've watched so many that like they're not even scary anymore.
Mhm.
I just love them.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that broke my brain, DJ just watched last night. After that, I'm like, nothing really hits me anymore.
Blake has been telling me to watch this movie for a while now. And I think when he first told me, I was traveling a bit, and I was like, oh, this is good because I could just watch it on the plane. And he's like, don't watch it on the plane.
You will get kicked off the plane.
If anybody sees, they're going to complain to the marshal and they're going to turn that plane around.
I'm pulling this plane over.
It was crazy. It's called Martyrs. And you told me because I was talking about
Ecstasy or some shit. What's that movie called?
No,
from Gaspar Noé. It's another French film.
I can't think of what
That's
it's
the one
called.
where they do LSD.
The one where it's like overnight at the party or whatever.
Yeah, and the whole movie's a one shot. It's crazy. Anyway, I watched Martyrs last night, and I kept putting it off because you built it up so high for me.
I like made the mistake of not warning one of my friends. I'm like, this movie really messed me up, and that's kind of where I left it. And then he texted me the day after, and he was like, "Screw you for making me watch that movie." Like
lose my number.
So I'm like trying to do like whenever I introduce people to it, I'm like, do I build it up? Do I prepare them? Do I let them hit it like I did? I got it recommended to it by a guy at Blockbuster back in the day, and he was just like, he was just like, "You like scary movies? Watch this." And I was like, "Cool."
Damn.
And I put it in. I was all by myself. My wife had went out of town for the weekend, and I'm like, "Yeah, scary movie night, woo!" And I got done and was like, man,
You felt dirty.
A quarter of that movie, I watched it with my peripherals.
No,
Like I like the TV's there, and I was like looking off to the side. Like that's how I watched like a quarter of the movie.
Can you tell us anything
quarter
about
It was
it?
really rough. There's a lot. It's like Hostel. If you've ever watched Hostel, but like the plot, I think is it's not just mindless. To me, it wasn't like mindless torture. It was like the plot was leading to something crazy. Like basically, you can drive somebody to the point. This is spoiler. You can drive somebody to the point where they can basically like see God, and they like were successful with like 4 people,
So they're trying to repeat that.
but like they wanted the person to tell them what it looked like on the other side.
Whoa.
And finally, this girl at the very end, she has like 2 hours where she tells them like what's on the other side. But it's like everything leading up to that. It's weird. It feels like 2 different movies. The first half of the movie,
Yep.
because it's like 2 friends, and I'm telling the whole plot. So
Fast forward if you want to watch some up
this
movie.
came out in 2008. This is by the way on like the horror movie Iceberg. This is like halfway down.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like near Serbian film and
Yeah,
shit.
exactly. That's in the conversation with this movie. Is
Don't
Serbian
watch
film.
it, people.
But yeah, basically it's like 2 friends, and her one friend was a test subject who ended up escaping from that group. And then her whole life she's like haunted by like this demon.
But you don't know why. You're like, what's going on?
Well, the girl's watching
Yeah.
her, and she's like doing all these things to herself, and there's nothing there, but the girl sees this thing doing it to her. She ends up dying, and she feels bad because her friend died, but then she gets caught and starts becoming that, and she starts feeling guilty because she's like, oh, it was real, at least for the girl.
Like I judged.
Yeah, exactly. Not necessarily. She did judge, but anyway, yeah, that was like the first half of the film was her friend, and then she becomes what her friend went through as a kid. You know?
As a full grown adult, so you're like aware. And for me, like the scene that like I watched Hostel growing up, and I was like, yeah, this is messed up, but like whatever, you know. Saw, like I watched Saw with my family as a kid.
Oh shit.
Yeah, like it was just like
hey guys, let's play a game. Let's play a little game.
Yeah. And my dad's
But a System of a Down was the line that they were trying to draw.
well, this was post System of a Down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would beat them down.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I was just like, let's watch it. And Dad's like, all right. And so we watched Saw, and I'm just eating pizza. I'm like, oh yeah, cut his head off. I'm like, oh, this is great. Yeah. And now thinking back, like we watched Hannibal with a bunch of guys, and they're eating the brains, and I'm just like, this is fine. And everyone else is like, I don't know about this, you know?
I'm like,
Yeah. So I don't know. Something's wrong with me. That's all there is to it.
hey, well then you're in the right place.
Something wrong with all of us here.
Yeah. I am
Did
glad
I build it
watched
up?
it. I don't know.
Did
if
I build
I'd
it up
watch
too
again.
much? What was I too? How did I go too far with explaining like, or did I
Like prefacing it to me?
Yeah, did I properly prepare you? I guess is my question.
Yeah. That's why it took me so long to like start it, because I rented the movie on like YouTube, and I was thinking too, I was like, crazy that anybody can just watch this on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, like go from Cocomelon to this. But yeah, I was just I bought it at like, I streamed last night. I was playing the new Hogwarts game, but
Let's not get political.
Yeah, don't cancel me. And then I like bought the movie and I laid down here for like an hour hesitating to watch it. Just scrolling through TikTok. And like I started it at one point and like 1 minute in, I paused and went back to TikTok for like half an hour and just scrolled just because I was nervous. And then I finished it by like 3 a.m.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well, I texted you kind of late. It was like 10 my time, I think. Or
Yeah, and like
9:30.
when you texted me, I was just starting streaming. So I was like, I gotta watch this before we record tomorrow. But yeah, extremely disturbing. If that sounds like your jam, then go watch it. I recommend.
Sick frick, dude.
Yeah, Martyrs.
If that's
there's remakes, and apparently the American remake is super shitty. So make sure it's the 2008 French version.
What the hell's the matter with the French, bro?
Yeah, I'm trying to watch Raw next.
Raw, that was intense too. But then there's another movie around that time called Inside that I watched afterwards, and you can imagine the concept is there's a pregnant woman and there's a woman who wants that baby. So you can imagine how that goes.
Dude, I'm so sensitive. I recently had a child, and I think I've gotten more sensitive. So stuff I'm like, I can't handle this. Like, Scream's my limit right now. And that's where I'm staying.
That's fair.
On the scale of the couch, it's like I'm the most sensitive right now. DJ will dive, and then Sean, I bet, could just like, I don't know.
Sean could probably watch Martyrs with like no reaction.
Yeah.
So, me, I had to like look away for a little bit, but like
anyway. I've watched it like now. This tells you like I can't say that I enjoyed it, right? But I've watched it like 4 times.
It's not supposed to be an enjoyable film.
No,
it's supposed to elicit a reaction.
Yeah. For me, the hardest part to watch is honestly when she's just getting punched.
Yes, that's the hardest part for me too.
Can't watch that
the
shit.
dude just comes down, and it's like 30 minutes of it.
Yeah.
No music.
No music.
No one talking. No one talking. And he's just like beating her.
Dude, and the sound bad. Just like it's like
like DJ can watch street fights, and I'm like, no, turn it. I can't watch it.
I grew up watching like street fights.
World Star.
Kimbo Slice.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Blake, we have you on today because we heard you have some fun stories. We're going to touch on a couple things. You're going to take us through some stuff, right?
Yes. I've got some stories that one has been featured on the show before, but you asked me to come on and retell it. That was like a long time ago, so I think it's probably fair to do.
Yeah.
And then another one, which is a spin-off of a story that you told about a hummus place.
Ooh. A conspiracy, the hummus conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly. So that one's kind of fun and probably is a good place to start because it's not exactly spooky, but it's weird. Perfect. And most of mine, for what it's worth, most of mine fall into that category. They're not that scary. It's just like, that's weird.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you grew up in Portland or around Portland? Tell us about that.
Just south of Portland, real close to the area that you tend to visit when you're there, and where the aforementioned hummus place is located. And I've been here my whole life. Like when I grew up, I was like, I'm strong and independent. I'm moving out now. 1.5 miles away from my parents.
Yeah.
You know? So I've been here forever. And I love it. And I've been all over the country, not as much as Sean, but I can't imagine living anywhere else, to be honest. So
you can like still connect to your parents' Wi-Fi if you wanted.
almost. They have since moved away. They're like, oh, this kid won't
keeps getting our Wi-Fi.
Yeah, he's hogging our Netflix. So now they've moved a whopping 10 minutes away, so I can't quite get their Wi-Fi. Yeah. But I'm born and raised. I'm an Oregon boy. Like I can't see myself going anywhere else. Although sometimes Nashville calls to me. It's my home away from home. I love Nashville. That's where the string company is. So there would be a lot of reasons for me to move to Nashville, but I don't see that ever happening. But yeah, growing up, it was like I was a typical '90s suburban kid. Riding my bike around, jumping off of stuff, getting into trouble, allegedly graffitiing things occasionally. Yeah. All that stuff. I got into all kinds of trouble. Somehow it didn't get arrested. I don't know how. There should have been multiple times where I was arrested, but never happened, fortunately. And yeah, grew up, got married, had kids, worked a job that I didn't like, and eventually figured out how to do this for a living instead. So that's kind of the nutshell version. And as far as what it was like, it was honestly, in retrospect, pretty idyllic. Like it was great. I had a good time with my friends. I had a good time, just in general. And I'm just trying to keep that rolling. I told somebody the other day, I'm just trying to live like a hobbit, like music and food. That's all I really care about. Like hanging out with my family, music, food. That's all I need. I'm good. Yeah. So
I love it.
I guess that's a decent segue into the hummus story. Charlie, do you want to like give the original real quick, and then I can take part 2 because it was a weird thing.
For sure. Yeah. And correct me if I get anything wrong because it's been a while, but my in-laws live right near Blake, so south of Portland. For a long time, my mother-in-law would go to this hummus shop that's right near their house, and she would get hummus, and the hummus is fire, dude. It's so good. But she'd always complain because she's like, man, they are never open. And a lot of factors led to her being suspicious. And she's like, something is going on at this hummus shop. Like, the way they act about their product is as if they don't want to sell their product. And so, I don't know. I heard that, and immediately I'm so like conspiratorial, and I'm like, okay, something crazy is going on. So,
didn't she go there and everybody was just like, whoa, like looking at her?
She said, yeah. So I get more and more, and I'm asking more and more questions, and I'm like asking her, like, you need to go find out, like, is something going on? Because she's like, maybe they're doing something. And I don't want to dox this place because if nothing's going on, whatever. But she goes and investigates, and there's always vans. There's like a ton of merchandise they're moving. And whenever she goes in, like I said, it's almost as if they don't want to sell hummus, even though it's a hummus store. And she'll walk in and everyone will just like look like, what are you doing here? And she's like, do you guys have the like pine nut hummus today or something? And they're just like, no hummus. And they're like, okay. Anyway, it's never open. I talked about that. Something's going on. This sleepy little town south of Portland, something big is happening in this hummus shop. And Blake heard that, and he lives near there. So I think you hit me up and you're like, what's it called? I'll go investigate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I went to my favorite since closed place called Phil's and got myself a breakfast sandwich. And I walked away and I was like, you know what? I'm still hungry.
Ooh.
Like I didn't quite get enough there because it's kind of small, but delicious. And I was like, I could go back in there and get another one, but I want to try something new. I want to try this hummus place I keep hearing about. And I'm pretty close to there right now. So I texted you, got the name, found where it was, and was like, okay, this is like 10 minutes away. I'm going to get some hummus. That sounds delicious. So I drive there and I pass it like 4 times because it's kind of like the sign's messed up. And I'm like, what? I finally figure it out. It's in a little strip mall. And there was a van parked out front.
Dude, real quick, I get a text from Blake at one point and he goes, there is something going on at this hummus. So this is his experience.
Yeah, so there is something going on because I walk up and I'm like, okay, the windows are dark. It says it's open on like Google, but it doesn't look open. And I'm looking around kind of like trying to figure out if it is. Pull on the door, like, no, it's locked. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to take some pictures and make sure that this is the right place. I think it is, but I'm going to send some pictures to the guys. So I take some pictures of the sign, take some pictures of the storefront, some pictures of the security camera that's like pointing right at me, like, hello.
And Randon, you can pull that up.
Sorry, this is the inside. We're looking at the inside right now. You taking the photo of the inside.
Okay. I can't see them myself, so.
No worries.
Yeah.
And then is there another one? Here's like, we'll skip that.
That's the inside again.
Any more? Here's
There's
like the security camera looking at them.
All for hummus.
And then there's another photo that's showing like the sign and the van,
which we won't include.
Yeah. So long story short, I'm like, this is pretty weird. And I start walking away back to my car. I'm like, I guess I'm not getting hummus today. This is where it got weird. This dude rolls up as I'm like halfway across the parking lot and almost to get in my car. And he's driving like a baller Mercedes SUV, like brand new, all blacked out, baller,
tinted
blacked out
windows and shit.
Yeah, the whole stereotypical thing. He rolls down the window. He's like a Middle Eastern dude, and he's like, "What's up?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I was just trying to get some hummus." He's like,
"Inshallah, I have some hummus today."
And he was like, "Why are you taking pictures?" And I was like, "Oh, my friends told me about this place, and I was just trying to make sure it was the right place." Which was true, and also I wanted to document because it was sus. But and he's like, "Well, yeah, we sell hummus." I'm like, "You do?"
Whoa.
Because I'd like some, yeah. Like, and he was just kind of like eyeing me down, like kind of looking at me, and he's like, "Well, we don't have it here." I'm like, what do you mean you don't have it here? What do you like? It's
where?
the
If not
it's
here,
the
then
hummus-
where?
and,
Back
and
at
he-
the hummus factory.
and he's like, oh, we sell it at farmers markets. I'm like, okay. But he was like, really like, he was nice, but he was also firm. He was like, you need to go type of, he didn't say that, but he was
the
like,
vibe.
the vibe was like, get in your car and drive away from here right now. And I was like, just kind of looking at him, and I wasn't really that freaked out. I wasn't worried he was going to like pull a piece on me or anything. But
You were going to become hummus, dude.
Yeah.
My dream finally comes true.
Yeah.
Mold me with the chickpeas, baby. And he's just kind of like, yeah, okay, like you can go. And I'm like, what? I'm kind of like being me. I'm like, oh, well, what farmers market? Tell me more. Like, where can I get it? I've heard such good things, and softening him up a little bit. And then he goes to explain, and I realized that one of the farmers markets he was talking about is literally like a 3-minute walk from my house, and they are indeed there every time. So
hummus.
yeah, but
You
like,
just hummused them.
but like there was so much weird about it though. The inside looked like, obviously they did make food there, but it didn't look like a place I'd necessarily want. The hummus is fire though, by the way. It's really good.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Well,
Yeah.
they have somebody monitoring all the time because they saw you pull up.
Yeah.
Unless it was mad coincidence, but
It could have been.
For story's sake, it sounds like they saw you and they pulled up like, "Hey, make sure this
is not the feds.
this infidel isn't like trying to infiltrate." You know?
Our citadel.
Yeah, our citadel.
Dude, that's the same thing. My mother-in-law has said, like, the vibe is always weird. They're always like doing something strange. There's like 20 guys like loading boxes into vans, and she's like, "What is?"
Well,
Bro.
what
She
threw
gets
me
the
off is
distinct
this.
vibe that there's something going on, and she's
What
like,
threw me
"I
off
don't
is the SUV. I'm like, there's this much money in hummus, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, she said they've raised their prices and they just keep raising them as if they like want people to stop trying to buy hummus. So like she's like, it's gotten so crazy. It's so expensive for one tub of hummus. So I don't know.
yeah.
Who knows,
But
dude?
But yeah, the final picture was like, I pretended to be like talking on my phone, and I like, took a picture of his car
Smooth, dude.
because I wanted to show you guys like this guy's got some access to capital in some way, shape, or form.
Dude, just some hummus feta, bro. Some cheese.
I'm gonna say that SUV was.
Oh, here we go. I
on
have
the
it
low
here. I'm going to show them here. We're not going to pull it up on stream.
Okay, I'm gonna say that SUV is probably on the low side, 80 grand. On the more accurate
The
side,
low
probably 120.
So here's the
Oh,
picture that
for
endangered
sure.
your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Interesting. Yeah. Very mafioso vibe.
Good
Yep.
luck.
Yeah. So I didn't go back because I was like, I think I got all the information I require at this point. We know something sus is going on. We don't know what.
100%.
But that's good enough for me. I don't need
Hey,
to
next time
know
we're in
anything anymore.
Portland, let's do a stakeout.
Ooh, as long as there's
They'd be
actual
like, yeah,
steak,
come on
dude.
in. Come on in. I was like,
No.
they chop this up.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Crazy. Fun.
So that's the update. Nothing too spooky, but
Definitely
But-
weird.
definitely weird. So I don't know where you guys want to go from there. I think I'll do what I did when we were off the air here a little bit, so we can scratch that one. So I'll read the names I got listed here. I just kind of made them up.
Let's hear it.
So we've got Hummus. We did that one. So one I've titled Lights in the Forest. One I titled Nighttime Visitor. One I titled Business Cult. And we've got Randonauting. And then we've got the story that has been told on this show before. So where do you guys want to go first?
We were legit talking about Randonauting yesterday.
Uh-huh.
We might have to start there.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's been a
start with
while.
random.
That trend
So
kind of
It was weird that we even brought it up. Yeah.
I'm glad you reminded me because I kind of forgot it had happened. But it was one of the weirdest things that's ever happened. So we should talk about it. So
Well, tell it from your side. Let's hear it.
yeah, so I was on a walk listening to 3 a.m. as I'm wont to do, trying to get those steps in. And I was like, Randonauting. I heard you guys talking about it. And for those that aren't familiar, I guess we should explain. Randonauting is basically a website where you go and you project your intentions into the ether, whether that's like, I want to fall in love, or I want to get money, or I want to do XYZ. Like you just kind of think those thoughts. And then I don't remember 100%, but like you click the button and it gives you some coordinates to go to. And
Mhm.
they're usually doable, within a reasonable range of your area.
Mhm.
So I did the Sean thing immediately. I was like, money. Give me some dough.
Yeah,
I want some money. And so I hit that, and that was like really close to where I was at. I was at a park, and I was like, oh, that's like a mile away. Cool. And so I went to the coordinates, looked around, nothing. It's like, okay.
It's not real.
Not real. I was like, all right, well, I can't just test it once. Let's be a little more vague with the intention. Like, let's not be like money. Let's just do something. And I can't remember exactly what I projected in my mind, but I want to say it was something like prosperity.
Ooh.
Something like that. A little more open-ended. And I hit it, gave me some coordinates, which oddly enough, like took me to walk down by my parents' house and like down into a canyon. It was a pretty good hike from where I was at. It was probably 3 miles. And so I walked there. I was still listening to you guys the whole time. And I got almost to where the coordinates were. And I just happened to look down, and there was a full-blown pearl necklace laying in the ground, just sitting there on the side of the road. I picked it up. I was like looking around, like, could this possibly belong to some house here? And it was in the middle of trees, and it was broken. So it was like it got snapped off of somebody's neck unintentionally somehow. It was just laying there. And so I had no way of knowing whose it could have been. It was like, I actually like a little bit mashed into the dirt. I don't even know how I fully caught it. And I picked it up, went a little further to the coordinates, and I didn't see anything there, but it was literally like another 50 yards.
That's
So that's
crazy.
evidence.
That's what I'm saying. So real quick.
And real quick, I took it back, and I looked it up online to like check for the realness of the pearls, and they're real. So it's still sitting there in my wife's drawer. She's like, I feel like we shouldn't do anything with it. I'm like, I feel like we should at least sell it if you're not going to wear it. Like,
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Flip it at the farmer's market, brotder. That's crazy.
Those guys like platinum. I don't think they're interested in pearls.
True. So yeah, Randonauting, like when it first came out, when it first hit, there was like really scary stories where people got it and their intention was death. And so they followed it, and it took them to the bank near their city, and they looked down, and there's a suitcase, and they're like, what the heck? And it was suspicious enough, they get close enough to it, and it smells or something, so they call the authorities, and it was a chopped up body.
Ugh.
And these are like TikTokers. They're not like, so this is real. You can see it. You can see the news.
We just chopped him up. It's a prank.
Yeah, it's just a prank, bro. No, but they were like on the news, and yeah, so that was, I think, one that really fueled
The
like
whole
the fire.
reality of it.
So right after we did that episode, we did it, and Sean was like, yeah, money. And so we went out there. It took us to in the middle of a mine near
quarry.
their rock quarry in their old house, and like it put Sean on this peak. And DJ and I are running around. We're hiding from like security guards and stuff, and like there's deers that scare the shit out of us. And then Sean climbs this hill, and he goes up there, and he finds nothing. So he was immediately
Well,
like,
Charles and I
"This
also
is
tried to climb the hill.
oh yeah, we got like I was like in slides and shit, and I was like, no.
Yeah, no, me too. Like Birkenstocks.
Yeah.
I like slid halfway down the hill. Like could not catch myself, so I just sprawled out.
Dude, it was like steep as shit. And Sean just like mountain goated up. But because of that, Sean was like, I told you it's fake. And I was telling him, I was like, bro, you went into it thinking it was fake. And then he's like, well, I thought about money or prosperity. And I was like, Sean, the journey was prosperity. Like the podcast is doing well now. Like that's it. And he was like, shut up. But I remember very, very early on, you texted or reached out to us and you sent us, I think, a photo of the necklace. And that was like one of our first times we'd interacted via the pod. Like we weren't chatting at that point. You know what I mean? When you did that?
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, it was definitely post us eating together.
Oh, was it? I'm
But,
sorry.
yeah,
My timeline
yeah,
is all up in my head.
But I can't remember like how far. It was during like the depths of lockdown. I remember
Crazy.
that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
So, yeah, I was like, I'm just by myself anyway. I'm gonna go for a walk. And there it was.
We can document so much better now. We should go randonauting again just to try it out.
Yeah.
But,
Okay,
but
I'll
we need to
come
like
in with
you gotta
more
believe.
honest
You gotta believe.
intentions
Yeah.
too.
You gotta believe. And then we'll have if chat or if anyone hit us up with like what you think we should put our
I still
intention.
think we should
And
intend
let's get
for
our
money.
listeners to put their intention towards it. Like
Easy. That could
triple
be
intention, bro.
disaster. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who knows?
We actually show up at their house.
They're like, ha, I got you here. But like one of our very first times we had interacted was you very early on sent in a story.
Yes.
So you want to tell us what, and I'm sure I butchered it. I'm sure I just exaggerated and lied and, you know.
You did not, though. I remember listening to it, back to it, and be like, that's pretty close to how I tell it. So it's a good story. So back in the 90s, good times. We were having a blast. So we had a Halloween party with me and all my little 12-year-old friends, and we were like, watching scary movies. We were watching Salem's Lot. I remember that very specifically, which is classic.
Yeah.
And it wasn't super late. I want to say it was like 7 or 8, and Mom's like, "Oh, we're almost out of snacks. Got to go to get some more snacks." And Dad at the time worked for himself out in his shop. And so it was not uncommon at all for him to be out there late, like sanding and spraying cabinets and stuff. So he's like, "I'm going to be out here working. Mom's going to get snacks. You guys settle down, behave in here, type of thing." And my sister was not there. I think she went to stay with a friend or something. So it was just a bunch of 12-year-old dudes just being hooligans, in the house, tackling each other and whatever else.
Just tickle fights.
So many feathers tickling everything. Yeah. And I get a call from my mom. Cell phones, relatively new for the average middle class family to have cell phones at the time. So my mom calls, and I pick up the phone. She's like, "Hey, the cops are looking for a guy down here at the end of the road. So just be on the lookout. Don't freak out, but just so you know."
Halloween too.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And I'm like, okay. So I tell everybody. Well, that just throws everybody into a tizzy fit. They're just like, "Oh no,"
She's like, "Don't panic." You're like, "Check. Everyone panic."
Everyone panic. So I got the phone in my hand. I've hung up, but I've got the cordless phone in my hand. There's like an island in the middle of the kitchen, and it's kind of an open floor plan type of situation. So there's windows all around, and everyone's hiding behind the island on the kitchen side. And somebody points out, like, if he comes up, he can just look in that other window. Who's to say he's going to go in the backyard? He might go in the front yard, and you can just see us all crouched behind the island. And so they're like, "Where can we go where he can't see us?" And for some reason, somebody got the brilliant idea to go in the bathroom. The bathroom, which was like one of the smallest rooms in the house. And I want to say there was around 12 of us.
It's because you all were shitting yourselves.
Yeah. So we get in there. We're all packed in. One of the dudes is crying, literally crying on the toilet. Nothing has happened yet. Nothing at all. So he's crying on the toilet. And the other guys are just like, "What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?" And I'm kind of sitting here thinking, nothing's happened yet, guys. Like, it was just a warning. Like, be aware that there might be a dude, And one of the guys, Cole, his parents lived really close. And someone's like, "Cole, call your parents." No one's thinking like, we should all just go outside and get my dad. He's like he's like a big, capable man, like he's not exactly somebody you would seem like, "I can take him." Like he's somebody you'd think twice about throwing down with.
Yeah.
No one's like, "Let's just all go out there as a group and go get Paul." We'll just call Cole's parents for some reason. So Cole calls his parents. This is 12-year-old logic is what it is.
Yeah.
So Cole calls his parents, and he's like, "Mom, guys, there's a guy outside, blah, 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 blah. Sherry's gone. Paul's out in the shop. We're not sure what to do." "What? What do you mean I'm grounded? Why am I grounded?" She thought he was messing with her. And so she's like, "You're grounded," and like kind of knowing his mom, I'm like, I can totally see she was half joking probably when she said it, but he's like, "No, I'm serious. This is happening. Please come over like right now." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Your dad and I'll be over in a little bit." I got kind of irritated, And all of a sudden we hear banging on the sliding glass door. Boo, 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 boo. And everyone's like, "Oh." And then it's my dad. "Hey, what's going on in there, guys? Why are all the doors locked? What's going on?" And so we all slowly kind of start emerging from the bathroom.
Did you wash your hands?
Just a flood of 12-year-old morons just coming out of the bathroom. And all of a sudden, Cole's the one, he's like, simultaneously the most freaked out, but also but the most brave at the same time. So he runs to the glass door, so stoked to get it open, right? And he's like, opens the door. He's like, "Paul, Sherry called, blah, blah, blah. The cops are looking for this guy down the road." And Dad's like, whoa, hold on, what? And he's standing in the entrance, and the door's like kind of only half open. And all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, guys, look out, guys, get out." And he just like starts like a panicked look on my dad's face. And I'm kind of standing to the side, and all of a sudden 2 shots, boom, boom. And my dad just spits blood all over the sliding glass door and slides down. Like literally just slides down the sliding glass door, and he's just laying there in a heap. And this dude comes out of the darkness with a mask pulled over his face, a machete in one hand, and a pistol in the other hand. He runs up, and Cole's got the sliding glass door handle. Like, he's got the full-blown handle inside, so he can hold on real good. On the outside, it's just like a couple little finger holes where you just can get in there.
Yeah.
Cole's holding on with all of his might. And he says, I remember this clear as day. He's like, guys, this is serious. We don't know this guy. And Blake, stranger danger. Your dad's dead.
He screamed, "Your dad's dead."
Yeah, yeah, which I could see. I could see that.
Wait, what's going through your head?
I'll
My
explain
dad's
that
dead.
later. I'll explain that. I'll explain that later. So he's holding on to the door with all of his might. The guy walks up, puts down one of his implements of destruction. I don't remember which one. And he just puts his fingers and he starts opening the door. And Cole's like holding on, trying to keep it closed. Like, ah! And he's screaming, ah! Everyone's running around like maniacs. Just absolute chaos. And the guy finally gets it open. He's a full-grown man, versus a 12-year-old. And he finally, even though he can only get his fingers in there, gets the door open and like takes 2 steps in the house, pulls off the mask. He's like, "Happy Halloween, boys." No, it was my uncle. And then my dad gets up and you can then start to smell ketchup.
Oh,
Like, so that was a real prank that they pulled, which my
I can't
uncle
wait
just
to torture my children, dude.
Oh, and everyone hated it at the time, and now it's like everyone's favorite memory.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that's a core memory right there.
yeah, everyone's like, "Remember when your dad got shot? Like, this is great." So the backstory to it is, Mom and Dad. I had this idea. My uncle just lived a few doors down at the point. He's like a quarter mile away, and I was like, "Wouldn't it be funny if he came over and just like stood in the windows and freaked us out on Halloween?" And then my aunt wasn't feeling very good, and my mom and dad did a really good job like the day before, like, "Hey, she's not feeling very good. I don't think this is going to happen."
Oh.
And so I kind of was like, "Oh, I guess
they
we're not."
double crossed you.
They did. So I'm like, okay, I guess it's not happening. That's fine. We'll still have fun, right? And so up until we got in the bathroom, I was equally freaking out with everyone because I was like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." And then I realized, oh, this is it. They're just taking it to another level. And then I had to pretend, so I was in on it from the time we got into the bathroom. Like, as soon as Cole called his mom, I'm like, "Oh, geez." Oh, yeah, I should say Cole's parents showed up right after that. And they thought it was hilarious. They were laughing. They were howling. They were laughing.
You're still
so hard.
grounded, but that was good.
Yeah. We were all just like, I mean, there was a few kids like crying still. Even after it was all done, someone was like, "That's not cool, man. That's not cool."
Go home.
Find out which of your friends are bitches.
Yeah. Well, and one of my friends had to go. He couldn't stay. So he left before this all happened, and he still to this day, he's like, "Can't believe my parents made me miss this. This would have been so incredible."
Yeah, that's no core memory for you.
Yeah. But so when he's screaming, "Blake, your dad's dead," I'm over there laughing.
Oh,
But,
shit.
like-
He's like, "This guy's a fucking psycho."
Well, everyone's running around like crazy, so I'm just like,
You're like, "Finally, I hate your dad."
the fortune's mine.
I just can't wait to be king. Yeah. So that was a hilarious moment in my life, but also like for most of those guys, they were freaked out the whole time, like the whole
I
time.
love that, bro.
Yeah.
That's so
And
fun.
They pulled it off. So what we didn't know is some of the sounds we were hearing outside while we were in the bathroom, they had already shot the scene basically. Like they had already done the dad murder outside the sliding glass door. They didn't realize we weren't in there because they couldn't see very good. And
So
then
the
that's
bathroom
when,
was a good move.
kind of, except if the killer would have gotten the house, we would all just been dead.
Oh.
He would just-
Yeah.
So my dad loaded blanks into this revolver. That's how
Dude,
he
they
did
went over.
Yeah.
Like they did it right.
Yeah. He was a gunsmith for a long time and like he had all reloading set up and everything. And so he loaded blanks into this real pistol, which is like
Alec
Ooh.
Baldwin.
that's I was like, that's brave. I mean, because The Crow, Alec Baldwin, like
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff is like, I don't know if I would have been quite okay with that, but he was confident.
Bruce Lee?
His son.
Brandon Lee. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was a wild time.
Dude, that
in
is
my life.
dope. I love that.
I remember being so upset after hearing that story too.
Yeah.
Because Charles told that, and I want to say it was like a April Fool's, like,
Well, you guys were like laughing and stuff because it's like lighthearted, and then all of a sudden the dad dies, and you're
we're
like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
I remember reading it, and I'm a slow ass reader, so I was like reading it, and then all of a sudden you're like, and then my dad's murdered in front of my eyes, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "I don't know if I can share this on pod, dude." And then like, yeah, I get the payoff, and you're like, "Oh, okay, no, this is amazing."
I actually wrote that down in order to get a spot on my middle school paper.
Oh,
Like that,
sick.
they heard that and they were like, "Yeah, this guy can come on. He's cool."
That's fun. That's so fun. Such a classic story.
Yeah, so that,
And that's
that
like
was
the true spirit of Halloween as well. It's like trick or treat. It's like y'all got tricked. like a mofo. Didn't you
Yes.
say, so when I do tell stories, I hear them and then I retell the movie that I see in my head.
Yes.
And you said that I use like an expletive or like I yelled as your dad. And you're like, it was just funny because my dad would never say that.
Not in that scenario.
So
He
what was it? Do you remember what it was at all? Did like I curse or something or say damn or something?
I think it was like just like what the hell? Like what the hell's going on there or something like that. Something to that effect. And I'm like, he wouldn't have said that to a bunch of 12-year-olds, you know? But that was like the only thing I remember being off about your version.
Funny.
So but that's just like because I know my dad. I'm like, I know he didn't say that.
That's
know?
funny.
I know that he has said it. I just know he wouldn't have said it in that context.
Got you.
Sorry, Dad. Sorry to throw you under the bus.
Hey, Dad's a good dude. Shout out, Dad. Dude, if you're willing to go that hard to like, one, fulfill something that you wanted, you're like, let's trick my friends.
Mhm.
And then two, just like go balls to the wall. Fake blood, fake murder, machete.
Blanks.
Yeah, dude. That's
Yeah.
sick.
Let
I
me
love
just
that.
put this out there. If anyone needs someone to do that, let me know because I'm in.
You're down to trick.
Yeah,
That
down to
hard?
trick everybody.
And that did inspire us, like going forward to like pull some, not quite to that level pranks, but some similar pranks on other friends, like growing up, pulling on like the little brothers and stuff, which similar ideas, but not quite to that level. We didn't have the technology to pull that off
Yeah.
exactly. But like we made a guy's mom vanish one time, and she was in on it. You know, she's like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be great." Because like we went outside looking around, the dad wasn't home, and I told him like, "There's this guy walking around with a bag down your driveway."
Oh my gosh.
And the mom was still there at the time, and so the younger brother was freaking out, and I'm like, "I don't know what the deal is." And she's like, "Can we get a hold of your dad?" He's like, "No, he's at work." Like, well, what are we gonna do? And the mom's like, "I'll go check it out." And she goes and like kind of goes around the corner, and he's looking through the window, and she screams, and then just ducks out of the height. And so this kid's freaking out, and he's like 8, you know,
Dude, trauma.
maybe a little older, maybe he was 10. Maybe he was 10. We were probably 14. So somewhere in that ballpark. It definitely inspired other pranks. And yeah, I don't know. In retrospect, that was probably a little bit aggressive. But
Fun, dude. Fun. Good intro
Yeah.
to stories.
oh yeah.
With a fake one, but you have some real ones, right?
I do have some real ones. So that was dad murder. Was how I had that one listed on.
How many more do you have?
I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 more. They're not all insanely long.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
We're gonna roll a 4D to determine the order. Are you down with that?
All
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
I'll grab it.
Okay. As also a former D&D kid, I've always appreciated the dice roll. So this is fun. Oh man, look at that tricep. Sean's got some
Okay,
tris on there.
what's what?
Just you have an order like on your paper.
Yeah, I do.
So we'll do 1, 2, 3, and then 4 is your choice.
Okay.
Sean's gonna roll for you.
Okay.
Number 1,
Okay.
Roll
Start with number 1. That's Lights in the Forest.
2,
Oh shit!
Okay.
Just goes in order.
1, 2, 4. So 1, 2,
It's-
and your choice.
And then the third one.
and then you get to choose.
I could do 3. I've got 3 here. I also have a 4th one I could add in that's a little bit of a local legend if we want to spend more time. So it's all
Whatever
up to
you
guys.
want. You
Cool.
you call the shots.
Okay. So this one is I've called it Lights in the Forest. I just wrote down random names because I was like, I've never titled these before, but I wanted to be able to recognize what I was trying to talk about. So this is a story that my dad told me when I was pretty young. And when I've brought it up to him as an adult, he's like, I don't really remember what you're talking about. So it makes it even weirder, you know, because I know that he's not making things up. Like he's a very honest guy. He's not just making things up other than to like torture children occasionally on Halloween. So this is called Lights in the Forest. So back when my dad and his friends. Now, this is how I remember it. Now, what could be occurring is he told me a story that happened to somebody else. But in my mind, as a kid, around the same time, I remember it being he was one of the main characters in the story. So take that with a grain of salt. But they were camping out in Oregon, in the wilderness, as one does around here, and he and his friends were all like, the adults were all in the main like state campground, right? There was little hookups and places for your RV and all that. And it was a horse camp. So there was horses tied up, and they decided they wanted to go. And I think they were like 14-ish. The guys wanted to go have, their own little dude camp under the stars for a night.
Sick.
And so they're like, okay, we're going to go up, a couple miles away over in this part. And, this is way pre-cell phone days. This would have been in the early 70s. No, probably late 70s, if I had to guess. And so they all ride horses out there. Everybody's having a good time looking at nature, enjoying the sights, enjoying the smells, all that good stuff. And they get to where they're going to camp. They tie up the horses. It's starting to get a little bit dark, and they get a fire going. They get their cot set up, or whatever they're doing exactly. I'm not 100% sure. And it's finally dark, and they're in the middle of the forest, like no light pollution, nothing like that. It is just a bright, starry night. And he said it was like somebody turned on the sun. It will all of a sudden, boom, it was daylight. They could see everything perfectly clear. It wasn't coming from any direction. It wasn't like a spotlight. It was just as if somebody had switched on the sun. And they're all looking at each other going, what is going on? And all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. And it's back to being dark.
Oh,
and they still to this day have no idea what that was.
Was the sky blue too?
It was black because it was nighttime. But you mean when the sun turned on?
Yeah.
That I don't know. I don't think they could tell. I think it was fast enough that their eyes weren't quite
100%.
Yeah,
You go
it
from
was
dark
like
to daylight.
Yeah, I think they were just like, what? Oh, and then it was dark again, is my understanding.
That's so weird.
They still don't know what it was.
How do you just like casually go to sleep after that?
That's what I always wondered. I think they did just like, well, I guess we're here. And I think they just went back to sleep. I was like, I'm packing up and going back to mommy and daddy. I'm not dealing with this.
100%. That's actually a super common occurrence. Like, there's so many times something crazy or unbelievable will happen to a group of people, and then they all talk about how like they don't know how, but they just go to sleep. And I think that's like part of the paranormal experience, where it's like, I don't know, you're so overwhelmed, or like your comprehension is so tested, and everyone just like gets tired and goes to sleep. When it's like when you hear it, you're like, oh, I would get in my car and drive away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, when we were in Park City years ago, and I think we were having a bonfire.
Oh yeah.
We just saw this string of lights in the sky perfectly lined up.
Some straight
Going
UFO
across.
shit, dude.
And Janelle pointed it out, and we were all looking.
We're
and
like-
we watched it for like 30 to 60 seconds at least.
Mm-hmm.
And we had never seen anything like that before. And
In my mind, I was like, we are looking at a UFO.
yeah, yeah. It ended up being Starlink
Sure.
from
yeah.
Elon Musk.
I've had that experience too.
Yeah, but like that was the first time we had seen it. And I think before, like it was really like a thing going on. It was like very early on.
Yeah.
And he did not do a good job at like warning the people.
No.
Zero job of warning the people.
We found out like the next day, but
Yeah.
we went to bed.
We were just like, all right. Yeah.
That was weird.
That's crazy.
Well, some of it is
roasting
like, what am I
marshmallows.
going to do about it? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like
Yeah.
can't do anything. I have such limited information.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it was like life threatening.
I
feel
don't know.
that's
Like
when I'd take
the
more
forest
action.
lighting up like that might be life threatening. You don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if it were me, I probably would have been like, we should maybe just not camp here.
Yeah. Let's move at least 14 feet over.
Because it seems like
something, dude.
Something either knew we were there
Mm.
or we randomly were in the path of something weird. Either way,
Do you know if they recalled any loud noises, or was
I
it
don't-
straight up just light on,
Smells.
light off?
light on, light off is the way I remember the
That's
story.
so weird.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
that rules out so many.
Because I was, when I remember hearing it, I was like, was it like a fighter jet? Like some weird test, but light on, light off. And a spotlight was I was like, was it a spotlight? I remember asking that question. He's like, it was coming from everywhere. So it would have been a lot of spotlights simultaneously
Mm.
if it was a spotlight, and it was just so fast. And why would anyone do that?
Yeah.
You know,
To scare 14-year-olds who camp there.
well, I guess there are random things done to scare children. So.
Maybe it was another prank that started.
It's the uncle.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one's kind of short and sweet. Most of these are fairly short. So the other one's another family story, and this one I called Nighttime Visitor, and this is my great grandpa. So I grew up, most of my family was local. So when I was born, and this sounds weird to a lot of people, I had 11 parents and great grandparents and grandparents alive while I was still alive, and most of them lived very close.
That's so dope, dude.
It was really cool. It was really a cool way to grow up. And therefore, I got to know my great-grandparents on my mom's side really well. I mowed their lawn. I watched Perry Mason with Grandpa. Like, I hung out with Grandpa a lot. A story that I heard from my mom telling it, but it was told to her by my great-grandpa. They moved in to, or excuse me, it was told by my great-grandma. They moved into their house, a pretty small house. And keep in mind the type of people that they are. They're very like no nonsense. He's a truck driver for the Teamsters for 40 years, not believing in a lot of mumbo jumbo, like pretty straight shooter, salt of the earth type people. And they're sleeping or trying to sleep in their bedroom. Again, small house. They've got like a billion kids upstairs. Like it's a very interesting situation. But all that to say is it's not easy to get around in that house without somebody knowing there's somebody moving around. And my grandpa falls asleep. Grandma's not really asleep. She's laying there by him. And all of a sudden she hears somebody walking around. And she's like, I didn't hear anybody come down the stairs. If it was any of the boys, would have heard him come down the stairs. Like it's very loud. Didn't hear anybody come down the stairs. Didn't hear that door open that would have required, somebody to come down the stairs. And she just hears somebody walking around out in the kitchen. And so she starts freaking out. She's like, I know we locked the doors. I know that there was no way anybody got in here without anybody knowing, but yet there are steps happening outside of our bedroom door. And so she's really concerned, and she's nudging my grandpa like, hey, get up. Somebody's out here. And he's just like, and she's like, no, somebody is in the kitchen. And he was like, he just kind of halfway woke up, not fully, turned around and looked at her, and he's like, don't worry about it. He's just making himself a sandwich. and she's like, what? He's like, don't worry about it. He's just getting himself a sandwich. Don't worry. Goes back to sleep. And she's like, what? Like, no. Like, who's getting themselves a sandwich? Why do you know someone's getting themselves a sandwich? And so she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm not going out there. He's obviously not going out there. I don't know what to do. And she's just really upset. And she hears like stuff going on in the kitchen and like steps going back and forth. And eventually it just goes away and she falls asleep. They get up the next morning. She's like, so you want to explain yourself like a little bit? He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I woke you up because someone was in our house. And he's like, what are you talking about? I don't remember any of that. It's like, you said, don't worry about it. He's just making himself a sandwich and you went back to sleep. He's like, I wouldn't do. What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. This is just nonsense.
Dude, gaslight grandpa, bro.
They go out of the kitchen. Somebody had made themselves a sandwich.
What the?
There was stuff on the table. I don't know exactly what, but there were remnants of a sandwich that had been made. Both doors were locked. All the boys swore up and down that they didn't do it.
What? Ghost peppers.
And
it sounds like a New Jersey Santa Claus.
Yeah,
It's like, I come in and make myself a sandwich.
I gotta get a gabagool. Yeah, I like that. Santa
Hoax
Claus.
or hoagie?
That's funny, bro.
But yeah, and they just never understood what it was. But something came into their house and acquired sandwich and left without opening doors.
Dude, it's like a new demon. It's like this one takes your soul. It's like this one, makes a turkey,
takes your sandwich.
a turkey club, dude.
I was thinking that's me in the afterlife.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to bother anybody. I'm just hungry.
Yeah, that's like the most benign outcome if you were to choose one.
One of my cousins, so not like real cousins at Ohana,
A poly cousin?
everyone's family.
Yeah.
We did everything together. Their family and my family. Everything. And they were the ones where like, if I asked my mom, can I go to this? She'd be like, well, are they going? And I say yes,
right.
then I can go, you know?
Sure.
But we had like the keys to each other's house. Like we knew where the key was to get into the house and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while I'd wake up in the middle of the night and hear something downstairs, and I go downstairs. And they're all poly, they're all big, and like the youngest one is like as big as me. This is Kamalani.
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
I'd like, before knowing it was him, I'd like go downstairs and just like, hear somebody, and he's just like this big like silhouette, just like making eggs. And it's like, my brothers are not that big. Who is that? And it's just my cousin scrambling eggs. Just in the middle of the night at my place. It's like, bro, you don't have eggs at your house? It's like, no, we were out.
Which now, dude,
It's
that's
like
like
you-
full on robbery. If you're taking eggs,
Yeah,
it's like you owe me a
we're
couple
in a shortage right now.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Breaking and egg-turing. Damn it. A B&E, dude.
B&E, breaking and egging, baby.
Begs and Benedict. That's crazy, bro. I have a story kind of similar. So that's like how it would go down in Hawaii and apparently Oregon. We have a
Apparently.
friend who he went to school in Provo, but his parents lived in Alpine. And over the weekends, sometimes he'd go there and just raid their fridge, right? Because he's like, I'm broke as shit and I want to save. And I've eaten 60 hot and readies from Little Caesars already this week. So anyway, he goes home. He doesn't tell his parents. He's making a sandwich. He's walking around. And his room is in the basement. So after he eats and like gets some drink and stuff like that, he opens the door to the basement and there's a muzzle of an AR-15 pointed at his face.
Ooh, yeah.
And his dad is full on hunter tactician, like ready to go, red dot on his forehead. And he puts it down. He's like, "Oh, Kevin, I had no idea you were coming home this weekend." And he said he was like, wiped the shit off his leg and he was like, that's me. But his dad had trigger control. He was like ready to go. And so it's like as you were talking about pulling that prank, I was like, man, you got to be really careful who you do that shit to now. Especially in Utah where it's like
Everybody's got a gun.
everyone's
dude.
ready to go.
Well, I mean, it's actually a good thing that, because I grew up shooting things, and so it was a good thing that my dad's stuff has always been locked up, like in a safe, and B, I had realized because it could have got to that point where I'm like,
kitchen
I know
knife
the
or some shit.
I know the combo.
Yeah.
I know the combo. I'm getting the 41 mag out. Here we go.
Up, down, A, B, A, B, start. Yeah, I know.
But-
so if you're out there,
yeah.
you're listening to this, prank responsibly. That's what
That's
we're
right.
saying.
It's
That's a
not
good
always
idea.
just a prank.
Know
bro.
your audience.
Yeah.
No, not audience, but who the target is.
Definitely.
Anyway, fun
So
story.
yeah, that's that one. And then this other one is one that happened to me and is apparently pretty common. I was not aware of this until I shared the story with some people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I know what you ran into." So I'm kind of a entrepreneurial type dude. I'm always interested in that kind of stuff and talking to people about businesses and what they're doing. And it's just something that I didn't know that I was into until I got into this. And so I'm freshly self-employed. I'd been on my own for maybe 6 months or so. And I walk into the store and there's this guy, I think he's just handing out coupons or something. I can't remember exactly what he's doing for the store. And he's like, "How's it going, man?" I'm like, "Actually, honestly, really good. I just got done at the gym and like saunaed and everything." And I was like, this is wonderful. Things are great right now. And I was like, honestly, really good. I'm really, really happy in this particular moment. I'm going to get some snacks. Like things are looking up. And he's like, "Really? Why?" I was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that." And so I kind of explained, like, I've recently been working for myself. I like it a lot better. Just got done at the gym, blah, blah. He's like, "Oh, really? What do you do?" And, that's just exactly the type of conversation that's going to snag me in. Right.
Mhm.
And so I start talking to the guy and he's like, "Hey, tell me what I've got some interesting things you might want to hear about. Let's go get coffee sometime." I'm like, "All right, I can handle myself. Like, as long as we're going to a public place, like, that's fine. I'll grab coffee with somebody." And so it goes on for like a week or so. And finally we figure out a time to meet and I go, and I'm talking to him and he's like, "Yeah, I think you do really well with my mentor. We sell stuff and we're building businesses together. And you seem like the type of person that this would be a good fit for." And I'm in my head, I'm going like, "Okay, all right, but what is it?"
Is this like an MLM thing?
Or Mormon missionaries.
Get 2 friends and
Turns out it was Mormon missionaries. No,
Like, hey, brother.
hey, brother.
Yeah.
You ever hear the word? Anyway, and he's like, not really spilling the beans, and I'm really weirded out. And then, of course, I'm talking to my business partner about it. I'm like, this is kind of weird, but I'm also so curious. I've got to go further. And so he wanted to meet up for coffee again for some weird reason. I was like, all right. So I did. Same thing, basically. Like, oh yeah, I think you'd be a great fit. I can't wait for you to meet this guy.
For what?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, what's going on? He's like, tell you what, come to this location in Vancouver, Washington, and like have a meeting. Yeah, the Couve, baby. Whew. That should have been another red flag.
Yeah.
And so he's talking to me, and I'm like, I don't really want to go, but my curiosity will not let me not go. And again, I'm like, I can handle myself. Like, I'm not too worried about it. I'm prepared. So I go to this thing, and it's a smallish house, not huge. I mean, a regular size house, I guess I should say. It is packed. There are cars up and down the street. There are all these people there. And I'm going, wow, okay, this is something. I don't know what it is, but I get in there, and there's chairs all set up to watch a presentation. And I'm like, all right, here we go. The whole presentation is just person after person going up there and being like, I can't even remember the guy's name. I really can't. Let's call him Greg for now. I can't remember his name. It's always a Greg. Greg has completely changed my life. Him and his wife are the most wonderful people. I did not know what to expect when I got into this, but it is completely a new era for me, and just person after person just gushing over this Greg fella. And I'm going like, okay, like, sure. I'm sure Greg's a genius, and I'm just, all my sensors are going off at this point. I'm like, there are some shenanigans afoot. And I realized in the middle of it, I'm like, this feels like a cult. Like, this feels like a really full-blown Jonestown style cult. Like, why is everybody
Everyone's wearing
man?
Nikes?
That's right. Yeah.
Why everyone's shoes so dope?
Yeah.
Man, I like those. That fits pretty fire. Actually,
They're serving Kool-Aid in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Flavor Aid. But yes. So I'm really getting like my spidey senses is on fire, but I'm like, I can't just get up in the middle of this and leave. I could have, but I was like, this is kind of trying not to be that rude. And I'm looking around, and everybody's just glued on these people. And finally, his wife gets up, Greg's wife, whatever her name was, and also just like, my husband's the most smartest, most genius man. I'm like not doing a very good job. Like, they had a full prepared speeches, and I'm just like, I don't like this one bit. And she's like, I couldn't believe the things I've seen him be able to do and the way he provides. And then finally, Greg gets up, whatever his name is, and he turns out he's from my town initially, and he's like, tells a story like, I was a huge mess, in high school. I was a football star and all this, but as soon as I got out, I got an injury, and I started drinking really heavily and got multiple DUIs and all this stuff. Just like telling, and he's like, then I discovered this system, and I really was able to turn my life around. He's like, I could go to sleep right now, never and not ever lift another finger, and I'm still gonna make 120 grand this year. And like all this stuff. And he's like, I'm going to make way more than that. And I'm going to show you how you can too. And he's like, like all this nonsense. And I'm just going, but it was like, I'm making it sound like it was kind of funny, but it wasn't. They were all so serious, like super serious. And I'm just going, I know exactly what's going on here. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I know something is going on here. And he's just like going on and on. Not once has anyone explained what they're doing.
They never do.
Never explained one thing, but it was like feeling more and more culty as it went on. And everyone's like, yeah, Greg. Oh, thank you. Oh, you're the best, Greg. Like, oh, thank you so much. You're the most wonderful. I've never seen anyone gush over one person like this crowd of people was gushing over this guy. It was gross, to be honest. It was like, I'm like, Greg's a dude. As a matter of fact, I think I can take Greg. Like, I'm not worried about Greg. I'm not trying to flex or anything, but I was like, he just seems like a regular guy.
Yeah.
Just a regular guy. Afterwards, for some reason, maybe he saw the look on my face or whatever. Everyone's just kind of mingling. He pulls me aside
Oh shit.
Oh no.
and he's like, "So what did you think?" I was like, "Honestly, I still have no idea what you do." "Well, maybe you can come to the next meeting and you can find." I'm like, "No, I've been to 4 meetings now or whatever. 3. This is the 3rd time I've met up with somebody from this group and I have no idea what it is that you guys do. So if you can't explain it to me, I'm going to go ahead and bounce." And he's like, "Well, I guess you're just not quite ready for it," or something like that. I was like, I'm not ready because I've wasted like 8 hours of time on this already. And if you can't explain to me what your business does in that amount of time, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this feels exactly like a cult. I'm out. And I was nicer than that. I was like, yeah, I'll let you know if I have any questions. And I bounced. And everyone was still there, like drinking juice and stuff. I don't know what they were doing.
Oh shit.
So I just left. I called my wife. I was like, that was the weirdest experience I've ever been a part of. And she's like, that sounds like a cult. Like it felt exactly like a cult. And fast forward to like a year and a half later or so, somebody was talking about something similar in the Portland area and on like in a Facebook group or on Reddit or something. I can't remember. So I reached out to the person. I was like, "Did you ever figure out what it is what they do?" And he was like, "Yes, I did. Actually, it's just a subsection of Amway."
I knew it. I knew it was Amway.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, but like what was weird about it to me is the worship of this one guy.
Yeah.
Like I've heard of Amway, and I know it's an MLM and I get all that, like whatever. If it works for you, congrats. It doesn't for most people. And I was just like, why? What is up with everybody worshiping this one man though? Like it felt like it really felt like it could break away from Amway and he could have been like, "We're moving to Africa.
Yeah.
And I want to bring you all with me."
Yeah.
It
They'll all
was,
follow him.
yeah. Some of people definitely would have. Definitely would have.
Dude, this might be a huge surprise, but like that type of stuff is pretty prevalent in Utah. In fact, Utah's known as like the MLM capital of the world, dude.
Mm-hmm. I've heard
And
that
just
before.
that worship of people. In the career I'm in, I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of those people who like
I am the way.
they
The
use
truth.
the cult of personality and like their following and stuff is like their whole game, and it's very interesting.
It's
And
very
I
gross.
feel exactly like you, where I'm sitting in the crowd like, what the is going on, dude?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, no. I'm like, you're not all that. I can tell.
Yeah.
Like,
So-
I can tell. You look like
so
just
your
like a
bullshit
guy that,
meter is working.
Yeah.
at least in that instance, it was firing on all cylinders. I'm like, no. And he was like, yeah, it was Amway. And he even knew the guy. He was like, was it this guy? And I can't remember his name at all. I'm not even trying to protect him. I'd actually call him out if I could remember. But it was nonsense. And it was like Amway. And I was like, I didn't know Amway was, I knew it was an
That wild.
MLM, but this, I don't know. Again, like the worship of this one guy. I've seen people get into MLMs and I've never seen anyone, they usually are focused on the product. I've never seen them focused on a person that way.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even, as far as I could tell, like somebody from Amway. He was like just somebody who did really well with the MLM system.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
I'm glad
wild.
you got out. You didn't get pulled into a kitchen and chopped up.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind
or like
of
with your
related
head
side
shaved and
note,
stuff.
Mhm.
I'm originally from Vancouver and grew
yes.
up there for
Sean's like, Greg's my dad.
like I lived there for like 10 years and then in and around like the Columbia River Gorge.
Mhm.
I remember one time this guy comes over to our house and I don't learn till later that this is Amway.
Oh, no way.
And my parents are both sitting in the living room chatting with this guy for hours.
Mhm.
And eventually he leaves and I hear like my parents talking about it. And the one like phrase that I remember hearing was, he said, it's only going to take 16 months for the rest of your lives. And I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Eventually, like a week later, my parents decided not to do anything with it.
Oh, Lord, thank you.
But bro, I could have been in one of them Amway cults for sure. They were very strong in the Couve area.
Dude, it was probably
probably
same
just-
tribe, dude.
It probably was
Tribe
something
of
really
Greg.
When you have
really-
a Portland dude calling something weird, then it's, then
You
it's
know
for
it's-
real.
Yeah. Not like Crystal Lady weird. Like it was even worse than that.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
normal, Crystal Lady. Yeah,
Yeah.
I trust her.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's got it figured out for
I'd
sure.
buy into her MLM. So.
Well, we got bamboozled, or Kevin, our intern Kevin, who always laughs in the background in the early episodes. we got bamboozled right outside of Powell's. This was like during your wedding, like the week of your wedding. We're walking around, and
we did a ghost tour in Portland.
Yeah,
for my bachelor party.
And
It
then-
was crazy, bro.
That'd been fun.
It was a
Did you do
movie.
those at the underground tour?
yeah, the underground one.
Yeah, so fun.
But during the day, we walked out of Powell's, and then there was this dude. I don't know if he was homeless or that was his style. Seems synonymous.
He was just
over there.
Portland.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had a typewriter. And Kevin's like, "What do you do?" Let me reiterate. What do you do?
There you go. I was like, who are you talking about? Yeah.
And he's like, "I write poems." I was like, "Of course you do." And he's like, "Can you write one about me?" And we like sit there and watch this guy write up a poem and on this janky typewriter and rips it off, gives it to Kevin. Kevin's like, "Oh, that's really beautiful. What does it mean?" And he's talking to him, and the dude's like, "That'll be $20." It's like Venmo me.
That's
Hey,
so funny.
I mean, hey, if you're good at something, don't do it for free, right?
Yep.
True. True.
Oh my gosh. Brittany just said, Charlie, our grandma was deep into Amway. She was like,
Really?
she was double diamond or something. I remember they sold protein bars that were fire. I
Damn,
still crave
protein
them.
bars?
Well, shit, if it works, if the product's good, tell grandma to fire it up again, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not even really like, I'm not like Amway is creepy. Like maybe it is. Maybe it's all like that. I was like, this one sector
The particular
was,
worship of
Yeah.
Greg.
That was
Yeah.
weird. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had a acquaintance who like almost conned me into it. Like he reached out to me on Facebook Messenger.
Better be former
course.
acquaintance, dude.
Yeah. We don't talk anymore. But he was like, "Hey, there's this man who like changed my life, and I hope he could like do something similar for you." And I was hella broke at the time, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I could use some change."
With your sore ankle and shit. You're like, I need help.
Yeah, and he like came by and he like gave me this DVD. He's like, "Watch this." I don't know. I don't think I ended up watching it. But he just kept talking about this dude and how he changed his life. I was like, "How has he changed your life?" And he just like couldn't tell me.
Right.
Like it's always such a roundabout way of getting to it. And anyway, he came back and picked up the DVD and like never talked to me again.
I think what's scary about it, because you're right, Blake, it's not the fact that it's Amway, it's not the fact that they're selling shit, but like the steps between that and then
$250,000 a month.
Between that and then Nike Kool-Aid outcomes is a very slippery slope.
Oh, yeah.
Because if anyone starts having that much power and like that much control over groups of people, it goes very fast. Where they're trying to your wife or they're trying to convince you that, you know, we all need to kill ourselves to get to this planet. You know, it's like, yeah, so that is creepy. And when I've talked about it before, but one of the scariest situations we could find ourselves in my mind, is like getting into a town or a place or a system where everyone's in on it. And you're kind of surrounded by everyone who's like,
Drinking the Kool-Aid.
yeah, dude. So that would, sitting in that middle of that meeting, I would be at one point I would be terrified, because I was like, if they all just like lock the door, turn and look at you, and they're like, "You're our next meal," you'd be like, "Shit."
Yeah. I was kind of like thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm glad that I'm prepared.
Yeah.
But I'll just leave it at that. You know?
there you
Like,
There's that show on Netflix. I never finished it. But a girl moves into the apartment complex, and everybody in the apartment complex meets in the basement. That's some weird cult thing. And she's watching it.
What was that
Have
called?
you guys seen? Yeah,
No.
it sounds like
I
Sean's
remember
the only
watching
one.
like 1 or 2 episodes of that.
I don't know why I never
She was like
finished it.
doing like a paper or something, or like doing like an
interviewing
article,
people
interviewing
in
people
the apartment. And then the further down she gets, she
Let's see.
she finds out
I
more.
did watch that. I forgot about that. Was good.
You finished
What
it?
is that? Yeah. What is that called?
I
Man,
cannot
that was-
remember.
That was fantastic. My brain is scrambled right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's furiously Googling, and I appreciate that. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the
yeah.
only one who would have to do that.
Anyway,
No, that was really good. You should finish it. It's whatever it's called. We'll figure it out later.
I know
Sorry.
who's in it, but I don't know what else they're in.
Yeah.
So I can't even
Brittany
find
will
it
put
that way.
Yeah.
Put it right here.
Ren just watched Midsummer the other day for the first time. And
Mhm.
that's similar. And it's weird because it's like in that group, like she went with friends, right? And like some of them were like, yeah, this is just their tradition. Old
Yep.
people just jumping off cliffs, you know?
Sure. Yeah. It's what it is.
And she's like, how is not? Florence Pugh was you in that meeting. She's like looking around and was like, how is this so normal?
Someone said
to
it's
all
called
y'all?
1BR.
1BR.
maybe I'm misinterpreting a comment.
So,
wait, no, that's a different colon. Shit, maybe I should read. Brittany said, I literally live in a midsummer town. Brittany lives in a town where a ton of Swedish people like founded a town. Everything in her town is Swedish.
Wow.
And it is like a very closed farm community, and they're very kind of like closed-minded to outsiders. It's very interesting. So whenever I go and visit, I stay on Brittany's farm, and then I go into town to get gas, and it's like everyone is like watching you. Like,
do you want to come to a cliff?
Yeah. It's like, oh shit. Yeah. But sweet.
That does remind me of something that you guys are going to probably find like really weird that I wanted to bring up on the show.
Let's hear it.
And I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this and not make me sound like even more of a psychopath. I was
chopping bodies.
So I was dismembering corpses.
Of course.
It's fine.
Of course.
As one does.
I am the only one I know that have watched Hereditary twice and fallen asleep both times. It does not grab me. I can tell that it's objectively a good movie. And I've seen the last 15 minutes. I've definitely like fallen asleep in that movie. And I'm like, I don't know if this is the scariest movie like everyone's saying it is, because I'm falling asleep right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Some people told me like, you're a psycho for that. And I'm like, I don't know. What do you, no, is that weird?
No,
is that not weird?
Kevin laughed out loud when the daughter's head flies off. Like he screamed, laughed. He thought it was the funniest shit ever because it was just so shocking. So yeah,
it is pretty funny.
Even within our friend group, it's like we have Kevin and I disagree so much on what's actually scary. Like Kevin right now would pray to Lucifer and like carve a sigil into his arm, and he would be like, it's whatever. But to me, I'm like, I don't mess with that. So my line is so much more before. Like one time we were exploring an abandoned prison, and we were like in the psychology ward.
Yeah.
And there was a burnt. Oh wait,
snapped in half.
That was you.
Yeah, it was.
Never mind. Not Kevin. But
Sean and Kevin are similar.
Yeah, Sean and Kevin are down. So we found a snapped in half, like half burnt Ouija board, and Sean walks up to it and he's like, let's play with it. And I was like, get away from it right now. I was all mad at him. But
see, that's where I'm like, I know that I've said like, I messed up and I can tolerate all this stuff. Like if I won't touch that either. I'm like, I'll
see, you have your limits. They're just different.
It's not like I'm even that worried about it. I'm just like, I don't need that in my life. What if it does work? Yeah. Like on the downside, probably it's not going to work. On the upside, like it works, and
so
then
you're just hedging your bets. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more of a practical. Like, why would I mess with that? It's probably not going to do anything. But what if it does? I'm not gaining anything from it. It'll only suck if it works. So
yeah. It's funny trying to like gauge boundaries with people and like who doesn't have boundaries and what that relationship is like. It's like I was watching Martyrs last night. I was like, I don't know who I'd suggest this to. Right? Like I'm not like going to be posting about it on my story. Like, yo, everybody, check out this cool movie. Or like even if somebody walked in while I was watching that movie, like most people would be like, what is wrong with you watching this? Yeah, by the way, Archive 81 is the name of the Netflix show.
Yes, that is awesome. And also, Climax was the movie we were trying to think of before.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, the LSD one.
Mm-hmm. That was a trippy one to watch. I admit it, but it didn't. As you can tell, like I was already so broken that it was like that was fun.
yeah. That was a different, like actually trippy. Like it felt like you were.
Mm-hmm.
You drank the punch with everybody and went crazy.
This might be too, once again, behind the scenes, behind the doors, whatever. So you have a very high threshold for spooky. As an outsider listening to our podcast, I don't know how I'm trying to articulate it. There's so many times I feel like we approach things in a more light way.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any time we've ever touched on anything that maybe you were like, I don't know, or has it all been pretty just like, this is pretty
no,
because some people listen to our podcast and they are scared shitless. Like we have so many personal friends who are like, I literally can't listen to it because it's so scary. And to us, we're like, what the f-? It's like we're barely touching on anything. You know what I mean? Like we don't go that deep in anything. So is it more just like a fun listen? Is there any subjects that have piqued your interest that you wouldn't touch, or are you pretty game for everything?
I'm pretty much game for everything.
Crazy.
Yeah. I did nothing. Sometimes you're like, warning. I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah. And we're like, warning, someone died.
I'm like, yeah, all right, cool. Yeah, sign me up. Yeah. No, it's always been a fun ride. I generally try to listen at night by myself. I think I've shared some stories on Instagram where I'm like walking around in the park listening to you guys. Like, I'm like, it's I try to freak myself out. Like sometimes my friends are. I just watched one called Skinamarink. You guys heard about this movie?
Is it
heard
worth
of it.
watching?
It's so weird. I get it, but I feel like you really do need to like throw your phone in the garbage, lock yourself down in the dark, focus on this thing to have the full surreal experience. And it's actually inspired me to something that I want to do later this year. I've had this idea for a while, but it's like kind of goes hand in hand with my music, and I want to try to create a audio-visual experience, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Sick, dude.
That'd be sick.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So yeah, it's still a concept at this point, but yeah, my music's really weird, and it's everyone's like, this should be in a movie, and I'm like, yeah, I guess it should. I don't know. It's just kind of where it pours out of my weird self.
Do we know of any instruments that are like well-known haunted artifacts?
So that's something I should be aware of, but not off the top of my head.
The only thing I can think of is, and I interested in hearing, there's a huge conspiracy around the frequency of music. Have you ever looked into that?
I have.
So there's some frequencies, just so people are listening, like everything, and the idea is everything in this life is like a frequency, like everything is vibrating at a thing. And so like, radio transmissions, but even like the cells in our body. And so they can be affected by frequencies.
Yeah,
so if you introduce
the secret chord that pleased the Lord.
David. And so the idea is that music is made in these frequencies, and there are some that uplift you and help you grow, and there's some that like stunt you and hurt you and harm you spiritually.
Minor chord, dude.
There you go. And so the conspiracy is that a lot of the music that's put out nowadays is in frequencies that are destructive and hurtful.
Oh, for real?
And yeah, and if you go further, XXX Tentacion was really into that right before he got killed, and he was preaching to everyone on live, like, don't bad frequencies, like only go, and then he gets taken out by Drake allegedly.
Oh, is that the theory? I didn't know that. That was the theory?
I'll send you videos on it. Yeah. Well, this is what happened. He had a flow. Sorry, this is so sidetracked, but whatever. XXX had he was a small rapper. Drake owns the world at this point. He's the hottest thing to come out of Florida, and he has "Look at Me." So da ba da da ba da 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 ba da ba da. He had a very very particular flow on that song. Like next month, and this is Drake's known for doing this. Where he finds someone small, kind of bites their fire, uses them, and then moves on.
And gets big off of it.
And so anyway, he did that. And there's a recording where he is straight up, it's like beat for beat, the rhythm of how you deliver something. Like your
cadence.
The cadence is the exact same. And so anyway, XXX goes on a live like a year later, and he just like, F that dude, he stole my flow. And then he says like, if I die, Drake did it.
Whoa.
Yeah, he says that pretty explicitly. And then there's all these ties, allegedly, to Drake and this death.
Well, there's cases going on still about it, and Drake is being called to court for it to attend the hearing.
Yeah.
So it's less of a conspiracy and more of like we're investigating right now.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Damn. But anyway, so X was into all this frequency shit before he died, and like positivity. Have you ever heard or anything about that? Do you have any idea? Because you understand frequency and music way more than I do, so... Is the Earth flat? That's what I'm asking.
The ice wall is not real.
Damn.
But as far as those frequencies goes, I've explored that stuff. I've put a low rumble in my music. I can't remember the exact frequency range off the top of my head, but it's very low, almost imperceptible. On a track called Halloween, actually, that features my young child screaming.
Shit!
It's barely a song. I'll say that. It's more of like and it's more of an experience. And I intentionally put this particular frequency of rumble in it because it has been used in films in the past and in other places to make people unsettled. Because you can't really hear it very well. If you have a sub, you can hear it and you can feel it. But if you're just kind of casually listening, you don't know it's there. But I've tried taking it out.
Every episode.
Yeah, right when we start stories, we start the rumble.
Oh,
and everyone's like, I want to throw up now.
That's kind of some people have said that. Not with my song, but like in other places that people have used it.
If it's too intense,
they'll say like it makes me feel sick and like uneasy. And so and I put it in and like listened to it with it, and then took it out and put it in, took it out, and I'm like, oh no, there's something to this. There's something that like makes me like, ooh, and so of course I left it in.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of iDozer?
That sounds really familiar. What's that
during
about?
high school, iPods are like hitting downloading is at its peak, like from FrostWire, and this thing called iDozer comes out. And the idea is that they took, dude, I'm going to butcher this. So if you take LSD, your brain is like emitting a different frequency, and they somehow recorded that and then like matched the frequency in an audio thing. And they said if you listen to it long enough and hard enough and loud enough, it will replicate your brain on like, so you can replicate drugs. So all of my friends like downloaded, you could get like marijuana, you could get weed, you could get like LSD, and we all put it on in a room on speakers and like laid on the floor and waited. I waited for like an hour, and I genuinely tried, and it didn't do shit. But
that sounds like binaural beats. You heard of that? So it's a similar idea, except they don't try to replicate certain drugs, but they basically, it's different frequency ranges, and there's different ones for different desired effects. And I tried it one time, and you can find them on YouTube, like all over the place. There's different ones. And I tried it one time and like really tried to I put on headphones, really tried to put myself into a state where I could be accepting of that kind of thing, like all by myself. And I'm like, I don't know if this is placebo effect or if it's really having an effect. Either way, I feel kind of weird right now. When I got done, I was like, woo, like I feel good, you know, like
send
this
links, bro.
Yeah. So that's kind of stuff I do believe. I mean, music has such a big impact, right? We all know that, you know, the music is so important and it affects so many people in so many different ways, whether it's just like your favorite riff or like this beat's awesome, or like, man, listen to like anything like can really grab you. Sound is extremely powerful. So how could this stuff not be at least real on an emotional level? Whether it affects you physically in the way that people claim, I'm sure that's up for debate. But I mean, they've showed that like plants that are exposed to different sound frequencies will grow in different ways. And people who have Alzheimer's will hear songs and they suddenly can communicate better from like things they used to hear all the time. And like it obviously has some sort of impact beyond what we understand.
1000%. Dude, we might need to do another music episode because there's two topics that I have like going in the background. Memphis death rap.
Oh, dude, yes.
They record killing people and they put
Holy hell.
They make a deal with the Faustian deal with the devil, and they put it in their music, and it guarantees them success.
At least that's the rumor.
That's the rumor. That's the ritual. And then Led Zeppelin.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I want to do a lot more music. Like, I love the story of, I can't remember who, the famous jazz musician who, you know, he was a really shitty musician, and then he went away for a couple months and came back, and he was so good.
Is that just what's the I Went Down to the movie?
Brother, Where
Art Thou? What's the
they
guitarist?
do that in that movie.
They run across he made a deal with the devil.
They do. That's actually it's Robert Johnson. So Robert Johnson is who that's based upon.
Yes.
Tommy Johnson's who they used in the movie.
Tommy,
Robert
right.
Johnson is the guy who supposedly did that, and he was actually murdered. That he was a blues singer and guitarist. Yeah. And apparently that was the rumor that he was so. I kind of think it got blown out of proportion and probably has more to do with some racism. Because
that's interesting too, to look into that.
But some people basically said he's so good now he must have made a deal with the devil, and I don't know if he leaned into it or what the deal was, but that's where that legend in American culture started.
Yeah, but interesting. Yeah, I want to do a whole music episode, so maybe we'll have to have you back on.
I'm game.
Yeah, Charles has been wanting to cover like deals with the devil through the music and in the music industry.
Oh, you have been wanting to do that, yeah.
So that seems like a perfect fit as we chat. I hate to do this. I have to pick my mom up like in 30 minutes from the airport.
I don't understand. We've only been going for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
They were just getting started.
So do we want to hit the last story and then wrap it up this time? And we'll have you back on? Or did we already do the last story? Am I crazy?
I did the last I had on the list. I have more. And I have some things I could go into, but I don't know if we want to save it for next time.
Dude, let's save it if you're willing to come back.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Cool.
This worked out great.
Yeah, this was good. Thank you, Blake. Everybody go check out the Tone Mob. And thanks for coming on. Long time coming.
Oh, man. You can invite me back anytime. This is a blast.
Well, it sounds like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
now that we've done it once, we know how to set it all up, so it'll be a lot smoother and easier going forward.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and you can give me some homework so I come a little bit prepared. A lot of just came with a lot of personal anecdotes this time, but
Sweet.
We got an actual thing we want to hit on, then I can dive in a little bit.
Let's shoot for music. So any music lore, any legend, any weird stuff, superstition, anything with music. Let's do like a music episode. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, man. Anything else?
that's it for me.
Anything you want to say for closing?
I just thank you for having me on. This was
Thank you for
exactly
coming
what
on.
I hoped it was going to be. It went great.
And-
The only way it could have been better is if I was there. But
True.
Yeah.
One
Dude,
day.
soon we'll do it.
Where do we find you online?
So my main activity, as far as just like random content and stuff, will be on Instagram. I do a lot of music gear demos. I make a lot of memes. I post kind of anything tangentially related to guitar gear. I post it there on Instagram. I also have been uploading the podcast videos to YouTube. I just uploaded one with Chris Shiflett from the Foo Fighters. That was a pretty fun episode. I've been doing a lot more of that lately just because people have begged me for it for years. And even though I'm primarily an audio podcast listener, you can find a lot of that on YouTube. And I'm doing more long form videos over there as well. That are
And then what's the handle,
related.
just so people have them clear?
at the Tone Mob pretty much everywhere.
Right.
TikTok, Instagram.
The Tone Mob.
Yep. That's because some Italian lady had Tone Mob when I tried to get it. So it's the Tone Mob everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Dope. Thank you, Blake. To all our listeners out there, trust your gut and watch your back.
Bye, love you, be safe.
Be careful out there.
Bye.
Blake, what are you going to say?
I was like, oh, I should have came prepared for that. I'm going to say, just be prepared.
Ooh.
Like it.
Hit it.
Middle, see you later.
Okay, see ya.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of 3 a.m. If you want to support us, visit our Patreon where patrons have access to exclusive content. If you're not able to support us monetarily, don't worry. This episode is on us. You can still rate and review us on whatever platform you listen to us on. It really does go a long way. You can also follow us on social media. Our handle everywhere, including Patreon, is the 3 a.m. pod. Finally, do you have any scary stories? If so, submit them to our website, the3ampodcast.com. We love any audio or visual aids that can help bring your stories to life. So file uploads are welcome with your written submissions. We're anxious and excited to hear from you.